Do I even need to give a bio anymore? I'm having an existential crisis, which I'm probably gonna have to keep this in the podcast now. Because do I even need to introduce you when it's like the third time of you being here? I know my usual shtick is, "Yo, how you doing?" Da 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 da.
Yeah, hang on, do that if you want. I mean, it's your fucking house, man. Let's fucking do your thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is what I was saying about earlier before we started recording about having a fucking crisis of identity within this fucking work that we do here on these podcasts. But yeah, all right, let's power through. Let's fucking power through then. We'll just roll into it and I'll just fucking read the intro and yeah, we'll get this car crash on the road. Fucking hell. So yeah, folks, how you doing? Welcome to episode 128 of the Simpa Life Podcast. We have today a man joining our third timer club who is a Scottish author, illustrator, and movie maker now, and the creator and the host of the CannamanTV Podcast, as well as the Cannaman comics, and as I said, the aforementioned new Cannaman movie. Check out the merch. Yeah, it's available now in links below. We'll discuss how you'll be able to get access to that in the coming hour, 2 hours, however long we manage to sit here and waffle on together. But yeah, without further ado, here is Conor Macleod. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, man. Thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome. Obviously, joking around there because we've been chatting for about an hour, and as I was saying before we started recording, it basically just felt like a little therapy session there. You've really kind of lit a fire back under me, which I think our conversations always do. So hopefully we haven't used all of the good fuel for the fire, and yeah, we can have a good chat and record a good episode here, brother.
Looking forward to it, man. Let's say thanks for coming to the premiere as well. That's, it was a significant drive for you, but honestly, it was brilliant to have you there, man.
My pleasure, man. As I said, always support you in what you do. I truly believe it's an art form to represent cannabis culture and to represent the ideals that it does. I think is ever more necessary in this world. So a few hours up the road was nothing, especially up a road as beautiful as the A66.
It's kind of cool, actually, because earlier on I was thinking that it was like the last conversation we had. I should have checked when the last podcast was, actually. But I was talking about, I'm making the movie, and and it's like, I've made the movie. Fucking, it happened, everybody. That was funny.
Yeah, man, I think the last episode was October 2022.
Was it? I'm pretty certain we've done one this year already, surely.
No, it's October 22, and then because it's funny because it was November 21 when I first had you on, so it's basically we're going to check in now every year around November. We'll get you back on. We'll see what movie number you're up to.
That's fucking bizarre, man. I really thought we already had one in this year. That's so bizarre. So when that would have been October last year, so I hadn't even like at that stage. I had so I've done the audio diary, that will be on the website as well. But so October 2022, I had I was halfway through drawing the first scene, which was actually a scene in the middle of the film. So October 2022, I was halfway through drawing. So the movie's up online. So this is going to be filled with spoilers, by the way, everybody. Apart from the end, so buy the fucking thing, CannamanTV.co.uk, and then you've got to chime back in. So yeah, essentially halfway through the origin scene, essentially where Cannaman and Donnie, he's telling Donnie what the fuck happened, like to who they got to be, who they are. I was halfway through drawing that, so I hadn't even coloured anything. I probably would have done about maybe 30 images, maybe something like that. A4 sheets of paper, and that would have just been inked over pencil. Aye, that's fucking mental, man. I genuinely thought we'd already had one this year. That's insane.
No, we were going to try and get one together, but obviously I wanted to make sure, with Paris, wanted to make sure that we timed it quite right here to get the maximum interest, because it is well worth an hour of your time, folks, and whatever the price point is that you settled on for people to access it, and again, to support small creators. And again, without too many sort of spoilers in it, I find it quite an emotional ride. It's a step up, and that isn't to say that your other work is down in terms of the couch skits or whatever. But to see it in long format, to really express out and hash out these characters, and to get the love and disdain that is commingled together of Donnie, of Cannaman, is beautiful, man. In the end, again, without any spoilers, there's a moment that will have you kind of like, oof, that got me. That got me. If it had a quintessential like Hollywood tearjerker soundtrack on it, man, you'd have had everyone crying at the fucking premiere. Because everyone you're just so invested into it, and like I said, the absorption of it. It's definitely worth people's time to check it out.
It's interesting you saying that, man. And I really appreciate that a lot, man, because that was so the next I'll talk about that actually in a bit. But yeah, that there, what you're describing, I was like, this is the most important part of the whole film. I need to make people have this feeling, right? And I think this is what's so fucking quality about making a film. And that's because it was like 10 and a half months from the first idea was September, and of like I need to do the storyboard. It was actually my brother's dad that had said to me, he'd messaged me, he'd watched half a dozen of the episodes, and he messaged me and went, right, get the fucking movie made. And it was a joke, obviously, and I'm looking at it, I kind of chuckled a bit, and I was thinking to myself, this is September last year, 2022, and I was thinking to myself, like, I better get busy, actually, because this is going to take fucking ages. And that's all I thought, because I was thinking, cause my mind straight went from when he was like, better get the movie made, and I was like, laughing, I was like, you've been watching episodes, and then the next thought was like, episodes times movie, that kind of thing. That was my kind of thought process. And I was like, wait a fucking minute, that's going to take like this amount of time. So I was like, it takes a month. If now I'm working, it takes 6 weeks to make an episode. So it's 6 weeks to make a fucking 8 and 10 minute episode kind of thing. So then times that over a fucking like times 10. Really, that's what my thought process was. It will be for the next one. Like that, like one of the, it wasn't a criticism, it was a compliment, if anything. That one of the people in the audience had said later on, he was like, I'd said to him, I'm going to be making a Donnie movie, and he went, you need to make it longer. He says that when I got to like 55 minutes and it finished, and I was like, oh, fuck, because he wanted to watch more. And I was like, that's good that people. I would have rather wanted people watching more than like it's that fine thing when an hour and a half in and they're like, mate, I would have been all right leaving at 45 minutes, you know. Mm-hmm. But no, that thing you're describing, that emotional bit, that was fun. That was fun to do, because I didn't, like, as you mentioned, the couch skits, that's what we said before we started recording. The couch skits are fun to do, and essentially it's a dopamine kick over the course of 2 days. That's what I do. Like, I got a wee boost through uploading something, and it's like, hey, but what I've noticed is that kick that I waited, because I didn't do as much couch skits, that fucking on the premiere, that was like I couldn't sleep when I got home. I was fucking buzzing. Like, there was the chemicals that were pumping through my fucking body, man, all natural. It was insane. Like, it was insane. I didn't even have a smoke all day, right, on the premiere morning, because I was like, I want to experience this. I want to. And it was so weird as well, because from the first morning, I think it was like the premiere's on the Thursday, from the Sunday, probably for the Monday, really, the Sunday was still the same, but the Monday when I woke up, I was like, it was like this is the week now. It was, it was like that. It was fucking mental. It was really weird. The whole process was like bizarre. It was really like experiential. That's what the whole fucking thing. Like, so that was the Monday. Tuesday was the same. Wednesday's like, oh, it's tomorrow. And then when I woke up on Thursday morning, I just kind of lay in my bed for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. I was just kind of like sitting thinking, you know, because I was like, it took all that period of time. Now this is that today's the day, and blah blah blah. And it's just, it's really. It's like a narcotic. That's what it's like. It's like the whole experience, the whole, from the moment of the conceptual idea of I'm going to do the movie and starting making the movie, that's where the narcotic essentially begins. Because with every fucking time you've finished doing a fucking sheet of paper, every time you finish doing a scene, your dopamine's peaked because you've just produced a craft, you've just produced an end task, that kind of thing. So then it goes down. If I do that over the course of the entire fucking 10 months and then add on the very end of the premiere day, which was just fucking hell, man. Couldn't give me a lift along to the premiere, man. I didn't stop speaking the whole time. Nothing different for this, obviously, but
man, yeah, it's interesting, because obviously they know from studies that the anticipation of a thing lights up the brain in a certain way, and then the actual experience itself. So did you feel kind of a drop in the days afterwards, or was it kind of a sense of achievement, like a slow burn sort of a sense of achievement afterwards?
That's a brilliant question, man, actually, because for the first 2 days, annoyingly, and I was fucking working the next day. I was pish, man. Like, I was like honestly, I was working the next 2 days, so Friday and the Saturday, and when I was there at work, I thought to myself, this is shit. I was kind of like I'd taken a fucking, it's like I'd taken a really shit drug, and then I'm at work. You know what I mean? You're sitting like in church. So what the fuck is this? It's totally the wrong context for the feeling I had. That's what it felt like. What it should have been was me in the house, just feeling it, just genuinely like absorbing what happened. One of the things, I mean, it was a benefit going to work the next day, because obviously the people there, like, obviously I was at my work essentially, and the next day I got to see the response from the staff from what they'd heard, because obviously I wasn't there an employment basis whatsoever. So I'm not even acknowledging what was happening, like people that were front of house. I didn't know what was like people, the staff. I wasn't even, apart from all right, chatting and stuff. Glad to be there, all that kind of shit. But it wasn't until the next day, and they were telling me what the people that were actually the staff and watching the film when they came down, and they were like really complimentary, and that was really nice to hear, because they weren't saying it to me, they were saying it to the other staff, and I was like, that's quality to hear. That was really nice to hear, that everybody enjoyed it. What I also heard, this was another quality thing that takes me onto the conversation of magic and the context of filmmaking, and how the basis of actual like magic, and with a K essentially, not this out the hat shit, but the real studied shit back in the day that we used to get taught and stuff like that. That's what happened that night. And then what's cool about this is that the reason why I know that's what happened, like magic happened, was I had 3 groups of people who each had like between 2 and 5 people in it. So that's like fucking 15, 20 people, like almost, give or take. And the 3 people that approached me, because I knew them personally and they brought friends with them, over the course of the next week or 2, maybe a bit more, probably maybe around about the next week or 2, one of these people had said to me, like, their entire night was of that level of high. So the reason why it connected to my mind was because they all went, the rest of your night we were buzzing, and it was like everybody was high later on in the night, and that's what I was like, that's fucking mental, because that's what I felt. Obviously, I'm lying on my bed, couldn't sleep, just fucking totally buzzing with all the fucking positive chemicals, essentially neurochemicals. But the reason why it's magical is because the basis of that is that I've instigated a neurochemical response and other fucking biological beings that they've carried on the rest of the night, and I've managed to instigate that as a consequence of producing a vision. Like, I've visualized a thing, and I've put in the little micro actions that's necessary to cultivate and create this thing, and then you display it to the public, and then the public get an emotional and like neurochemical response as a consequence of this thing, and it carries the rest of the night. That's fucking mental, to the point where some other folk have said to me, like, that's what they're like looking forward to this Friday. Obviously when it's up online, they've said that they're like, I would watch it again. And this was like 2 or 3 days later, I would fucking watch that again, man. That was quality. And then they were talking about what was cool is that the difference of people talking about different parts that they enjoyed, and what seemed to be relatively central was the soundtrack. Everybody was like, the soundtrack was quality, man. And I put a lot of effort into making sure that it was, because like music, music's like the emotional skeleton behind the film. That's what it's kind of like.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways, the applause sign for the audience. It's a way to reaffirm and kind of help guide, I guess, your emotional response without it being too manipulative, which is kind of what I was alluding to before with that Hollywood tearjerker comment. Yeah. So yeah, it was, and it felt authentic. And I think that part of what you built there in that space by producing the movie, by the serendipitous nature of you being able to produce the premiere in the place that you did and the way that you did, I think you give people hope. You showed people that you, through a vision, through hard work, and through dedication, were able to, as we've just discussed there, in the space of about a year or so, conceive of, produce, and release this vision. And I think it's a reminder of hope. And I think that is a powerful drug. I can't remember which civil rights activist described hope as like the ultimate narcotic. But I think that's kind of what you did there for people in this space. Everyone in that room, everyone that attended that evening, were like-minded individuals. As I think you said when we spoke of it, one of the ladies on reception quipped that everyone they've served a ticket to smelled of weed.
That's right.
and so I think it's that collectiveness, in the same like a church does, or a DJ set, or a festival. It's people get to step outside of the normal rules, and especially with cannabis, when we carry such a burden, as we were just discussing in my therapy session before we start recording. The burden that we carry as consumers, the fear of the blue light, the fear, if we are cultivators, of what that can do long term to sort of mental health, what overconsumption, underconsumption, misconsumption can do to an individual, especially as, again, we described before we were speaking, like unconscious consumption, like just that passive consumption, rather than questioning the desire and the impulse. Do I want this? Do I need this right now? Is it going to be beneficial? And kind of having that conversation with yourself. And so, yeah, I think that's a powerful thing, as you said. It is a form of, I guess, in the old parlance, alchemy.
There we go.
You are taking things together. Again, I learned from my podcast. I do listen to you when we sit and have these conversations. I will link previous episodes below, folks, so you can understand the philosophy of some in the depth of the philosophy. The conversations that we've had previously. But yeah, I think it is. You are manifesting something, and again, that is an action that others see that and they're inspired by it. It is the 90s fucking cliched sports movie, everything from Cool Runnings to like fucking Space Jam. Why are those the two examples that were in my brain? But you know what I mean, the overcoming the hero's journey, as we discussed. And I say Alistair Campbell there, that's giving a hell of a lot of benefit to a former Tory fucking peer. What am I trying to mean here? Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. I think again we recognize that archetypal story, and where people can then feel connected to that, they feel inspired by it, and again they're seeing a cannabis creator is I suppose in the loosest term, not in a loose term in this means to describe yourself as having that success and being welcomed by that system that in every other moment is so oppressive to them. That I will agree is magic, whether you want to spell it with a C or a K.
I mean, the thing is, definitely, and it's good that you see that angle as well. You know, every perspective is as important as the next, man. And it was because I remember you saying that on the evening when you were like, "Oh, this is quality. This is a really nice venue, man. This is fucking mainstream shit. This is well done." And I didn't even think about that. It didn't even pop in my mind, man. I was just so focused on the content, on what is the response for the content, and it's quite interesting to kind of like unconsciously fucking create that kind of impression as well. Like that's just sheer fortune. Like I'm extremely grateful that was something that was a response, was like a consequence of creating the movie. That was also something that happened. That's fucking dynamite, man. You know, I won't even take any credit for that because that wasn't an intention whatsoever. I'm just grateful that I was the example that managed to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. I think that's it's going to reference somebody that no one has kind of heard from in a while. Is going to cause several comments of where is he? I don't know. I did actually get a story liked off him like 2-3 months ago, but I think something that came up in Outlaws podcast, which was this thing of an activist ultimately should be someone who acts in a way is to create a world that they want to see. That isn't by force. That's not authoritarianism or fascism. It is simply you walking through the woods, you pick that litter up. If you want to see less litter, do you know what I mean? Firstly, obviously you don't fucking litter, but that should be a given. But then if you see that shit, pick it up, you know, act in that responsible way that you can, you know, humbly, consciously, kind of understand your actions to how they want to manifest, not just unconsciously act upon it. Well, I thought to do it. That's manifest destiny, John Locke shit, and we've seen what that's done to the world. So fuck that. But in terms of, you know, conscious sovereignty and acting upon and in a way that you find is morally correct for oneself, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And that's essentially what, I mean, looking at the t-shirt as well, like that's the essence of essentially anything that's phenomenal, man. I really appreciate you wearing that. Like.
It's such good, man.
I need to actually set up the merch store on the website. That's something I do need to do.
Definitely, you've got some really good good
yes, I'm the same. Cheers, bro.
Yeah, cheers. I've actually just realized I still owe Gary Yates a tenner for this mug. Gary, if you're out there, I've just remembered I will send you a fucking tenner over.
It's funny that actually, because at the very end, obviously I was really busy, everybody with their fucking stuff and all that kind of shit, and I was like, so at the very end, I actually said to Gary Watson, I was like, here, man, going, because we went for a photo, and I was like, here, go and get Simpa, and he ran outside, but you'd already left. I was like, fuck, man. I was literally just to get, it would have been a good photo, obviously, but inevitably, like, let's say, we'll have to do it for the next one. That's like, the next one is going to be the Donny movie, and that's going to be a Christmas release, I think, pretty close to Christmas. That'll be a fucking peach.
That'd be awesome. I think next time I'll try and make arrangements to stay in the area. I think I ended up I ended up speaking to a group of people and having a smoke, and I went back to go grab something from my car, and then kind of turned around and people had disappeared, and then I walked around the front, and I just kind of was like, all right, I'm gonna take this opportunity to not have to spend the awkward half an hour. For all I do love saying goodbye to people, just that I don't know, I get a bit overwhelmed with having to do the individual goodbyes to dozens of people. So it was kind of, my brain grabbed the opportunity, but like, out of here, peace out, guys.
Yeah, no, it was busy, man. There was a lot of energy in the room. And it's funny that as well, because one of the things that, as a learning experience for me, Never done it before. One of the things, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, I think before we started recording actually, was about that social, like developing the social technique in alignment with your craft. So obviously, as your craft develops and progresses, inevitably, as long as it becomes successful in some form, it'll incur some form of social response. In this case, loads of people show up to the premiere. That's something I've not experienced before. Like, I've never experienced such a huge amount of people there that's like actively trying to talk to me. That's something that I was like, what the fuck? And that's something that at the beginning I was literally like, right, because obviously I'm learning all of this. Like, this is like total learning. This is like this is the apprenticeship stage. That's what this is. And so I'm trying to absorb as much information whilst not making as many fucking mistakes. And one of the things was like, I can't be rude to anybody in the concept. Cool, man, 2 minutes. And like, everybody has to be aware that I'm grateful that they're all here. And that was something that I was trying to be conscious of. But there was a weird moment where, as I was driving along, obviously in the car, got out of the motor, I started to feel more excited. And as I started walking in the building, I was like, right. And I started to really feel like, right, fucking like super excited. And then it was weird, man, because then it kind of like plateaued. I walked in and one of the lasses behind the box office shouted over to me. She went, oh, look, it's the man of the hour. That didn't fucking help. Literally there, I was like, oh, fuck, that's pressure, man. Walked through, I was like, all right, just got chatting and stuff like that. But it was a weird thing. The moment I put the merch down on the table, I started to feel like what would, up until that point, I would have described it as excitement. Like, I felt energized upward. The moment I put the merch on the table, I felt nervous, like immediately. And it was a really weird, like, boom moment of fuck. Like that changed from I'm buzzing to fuck's sake. It was like a weird thing. And it was fleeting as fuck. Because a moment, as soon as it happened, I was like, nah, man. It was like this battle inside my head of like, nah, man, this is fucking, there's a weird, like, do you know Bill Burr, the comedian?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, he's got this fucking sketch, and this is what pops through my mind when these kind of things happen. Where it was like he's talking about his dog and how his dog's fucking he's been priming his dog unintentionally to want to bite people just because Bill Burr's relatively aggressive, shouts blah, 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 blah. So his dog's been like, yeah, fucking hell. So he didn't know. So every time he's walking with his dog down the tunnel bit to go take it for a walk, he described his dog in the game zone, and he described it as like, this is what we play for. Like, and that's genuinely right. That's what I felt when I was standing at the table. I got super nervous just for a second. I was like, what the fuck? And then I started, because like it was like considering all the factors that there's like people showing up and people are going to try and buy this shit. It was the very first time that I had publicly represented myself as the Cannaman brand. I think that's what it was. I'd never represented myself in public as the Cannaman brand, right? And I think that moment was the moment of me realizing that. And it was immediately shot to the side of me going, nah, man, this is what you play for. What the fuck? And it just boom. And that's what it was, Bill Burr going, this is what we play for. That's what passed my mind. So I felt nervous. That sentence fucking passed my mind, and it just went back to being excited again. I was like, yeah, man, shit hot. This is game time. Let's do this. You know, and it was interesting because I think what helped me do that was partly just excitement, because I'd finished the film in fucking August. Nobody had seen it. So I'd been sitting on this thing for 10 months with nobody, and I was like, fucking hell, let's get this fucking scene. But the other part was that I'm aware of the neurochemistry behind anxiety, and it's the same neurochemical formula that's present when you're excited. And the only difference between the interpretation, if you feel anxious or excited, is your interpretation of the circumstance. And that's so in my mind, I just kept telling myself, this is fun. This is really fun. This is super fun. And I just only felt it as fun. And that in that one moment, it kind of fucking like, this is worrying, blah, blah, blah. And I was, nah, man, this is fucking game time. Boom. And it's back to being, this is fun. You know what I mean? And I think it's something that we can all use, because that's the first time I've ever had to utilize something that I've learned online, like a fucking tool, a neurochemical fucking hack, essentially. I'd never had to experience, like, you're not going to feel anxious at the shop. You know, if you are, then there's something else going on in your life. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how it was interesting.
Yeah, man. No, I can entirely empathize with that position and that sort of experience of it. It's something I kind of got quite used to. It took me quite a long time, but then it was just a moment where I realized it didn't happen anymore. But then it would happen in quiet, and that's the problem that I have, is the internalized critique when I'm sat in this little box. As soon as I'm outside of it and actually speaking and responsive to another person, I'm sweet. But I think, as I alluded to in my outtake of last week's fucking video in between the credits, as soon as I lose the guest, I'm shit. I know I've got to wind down the podcast, do my little thing, but then I start to fuck it up, because it's almost I can. Do you know what I mean? So when I'm sat here, I can be so critical and have like 20 lines of thought. I mean, shit, if you look at my desktop half the time, there's fucking 60 windows open. Do you know what I mean? My phone has just been infinite for forever of just, I'll save that news article for later so I can use it. You know what I mean? It's just, that's a good representation of my brain most fucking days. But as soon as I'm then put in a position of like speak, it's like, oh, perform. Oh, this is easy. And it's like, I could go to sleep in my brain at the back of it's just, I'm here, I'm present. As soon as the show stops and I have to go back to the dressing room, as it were, that's where my mental health really fucking struggles with it. Do you know what I mean? But then every now and then you'll get the anxiety leading up. But as soon as the camera goes and you're like, oh, cool. Yo, how's it going?
Yeah. I think actually the reason why that's where you say that's where anxiety goes off is when you get back home. I think the reason why is because you've not identified writing as your actual craft. Right, because that's what happens is that the moment you stop performing, right, the performance is kind of like the sporting event after you've spent months in the gym, right? The performance doesn't mean anything. The performance is an example of the stage that you're at. It doesn't mean, like, that's the way I see it. So it's like the where are the place that is most important, where all this stuff lives, is in the craft, is at the beginning when you're in private, when you're just fucking, in my case, drawing. But in your case, if it's writing, and if you because it'll get to the point where the whole performance thing is actually an inconvenience. Like by the time the thing's made, you're like, very good. You know, actually, I said this to the boy's mum just recently, but I'd said it fucking years ago as well. Where I was like, it's a really weird thing. So it's like there's almost like a tripartite formula in the case of any form of craft, where it's like you have the idea for the thing, you engage in the actual process of the craft, and then you have the product at the end once you've done it, right? So it's like the idea, the process, the product. And the main important thing about the whole, like those three, is the middle one of just the process. Like, it doesn't matter what the idea is, it doesn't matter what the end product's going to be. As long as you're actively engaged in the craft every day, then you're maintaining on a boring level the same neurochemical formula that keeps you in flow state, that keeps you in that productive mind frame, that keeps you in a positive state of mental health. So it's not, because once you've made the thing, like you actually touched on it, I didn't actually go into it because I'm a fucking nightmare, so I rant. But you touched on it before when you're like, how did I feel afterwards? So the first 2 days I was at work, felt relatively high out of context because I was like, I'm at work, so you've still got to kind of be, you couldn't be, this is fucking dynamite, and you couldn't be in the house. And what I would have liked to be is in the house doing more. But what I did do in the morning, this is what's important. The next morning when I woke up, I immediately got started on the storyboard for the Donnie movie. You know, and then when I got home on the Friday from work, I started editing the episode that's coming up. So it's still, there was never a break in the fucking thing, because the idea of sitting on my hands going, right, I'm not doing anything, is kind of shit. It kind of makes me feel like this is pish, man. Like, because I enjoy the craft. Like, it's not even an enjoyment. It's kind of like you have to breathe, man. I have to get back to this fucking thing. And what I noticed was after the first 3 or 4 days, the initial high went away, and about 10 days after, 2 weeks after, I felt fucking miserable. I felt low. I felt really flat. Like I felt, and I knew it was going to be coming. I spent the whole time in this hyper state of fucking dopamine and shit for months, and I was aware that this is going to be a drop. So, but even though I was aware, it didn't take away the sensation of being unpleasant. You know what I mean? I was like, even though you know it's coming, it doesn't mean it's not going to be shit. You prepare for it. So when I felt super low, I churned out, I think, 2 couch skits, and I did some drawing on the graphic novel, because the 2 couch skits allowed my dopamine to go back to that productive place. So when I, over the course of 2 days, made it, produced it, uploaded it, I feel fucking comfortable again. Did it again whilst doing the graphic novel, 2 or 3 pages of that, because every time I finished in a page, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that gets me back to that place of comfort. And it's like, spiritually, I suppose you could have a whole conversation with that, but neurochemically, I'm just trying to create a homeostatic balance of constant fucking of a heightened state of productivity. You know what I mean? Because you feel shit hot. You feel quality in that. Like the idea of like just relax and sit down and be inactive is only said by people who aren't doing anything. Nobody says that if they're doing something. Nobody's like, because the people that are doing something feel it. They're like, this is way better than just chilling, man. This is, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm sitting, like I'll take the breaks away, I'll sit and watch TV and have something to eat. And then I'll watch like an episode of something like fucking Friends or Sopranos or something, and then cut it off and then go back to it. There are days out of the entire week, maybe 1 day, I don't know, 2 days every 10 days or so, where I'll be like, oh fuck, I'm going to do some stuff tonight. I'll smoke too much and I'll fall asleep on the couch. That happens. But it's all about maintaining a daily routine, which is statistically likely to always give you improvement, and that means you do like productive shit every day. It's, you know, but so again, sorry to rant, man, but it's like the month that about 10 days, 2 weeks after, I felt pretty low for about 2 weeks, you know, relatively like, oh, this is kind of flat, but it's just it was more it didn't feel chemical. It felt more in a psychological place of kind of like the biggest project I've been working on ever has done now. It's like, and what's weird is I did an audio diary, which is going to be going alongside on the website as well, like that people can access. And in the audio diary, I hear myself saying, because obviously I had to listen back to it. I heard myself saying something like, which is also a weird side point, that I've not done an audio diary before, and it does feel like I'm listening to somebody somebody else, because I don't remember the shit. I'm only recording for 10 minutes, and I did it fucking 5 months ago. Nobody's going to remember that, you know what I mean? So I'm listening to this shit as like a new observer, like, oh, wonder what he's going to say next. It's kind of like that. So that was kind of weird. But in one of the audio diaries, I did actually turn around and say, whether or not I do a Donny movie, I'm not sure. And that was nearer the end of the film. And then 3 weeks after I'd done the film, immediately my mind was like, I'm making a Donny movie today. This is happening. So it's a weird feeling, because in my mind, I'm trying to locate at what point did I change my mind and not only become not like, maybe I'll do it, but like, this is now happening. And it must have been after the experience. I think that's what it was.
Interesting. Thank you for getting back, I suppose, to that question. No, it's all good. It's what I enjoy about our conversations. You flow like me. We get there eventually, and we connected about several of the different points, and it flows quite well.
Price-wise, I was going to say that though, because you mentioned how much it's priced. So the movie's a tenner. It's if you go on the CannamanTV website, www.cannamantv.co.uk, and go into pricing and plans, or click on one of the videos that's there, Cannaman movie, or the end of the series that's there, and it'll take you straight to the subscribe. It's a tenner a month. Cancel any time, and that obviously goes towards being able to market the website and create better content and that kind of thing. It'd be much more helpful if I wasn't having to spend 36 hours a week away at work, then coming back to draw, but this is the process. But yeah, so that'll be super helpful. And it is kind of cool seeing all the because it's all the feature length episodes that's on the website that I've taken from YouTube and put them on the website. And it's kind of cool to see that it's like, it feels more authentic now. There's a really weird feeling. I was trying to understand this. I was like, just by you're doing the same thing, but if you attach some form of price tag to it, now the values went up, not just on how much you pay for it, but almost how you interpret that thing is. It's really weird. It's most likely cultural conditioning, but at the same time, it was weird. It felt more like quality. I'm doing literally the same videos on YouTube. I passed them over and put them up on the website, and now it's like you can only access it with a subscription, and it's like, yeah, man, I'm fucking making progress. It's like nothing happened, man. You know, so psychologically, I'm trying to figure out what that is. You know, that it's just now I'm making progress because it's like, I don't know, closer to being self-sufficient or something, self-sustainable. But yeah, so CannamanTV.co.uk, and you'll get up there. It's going to be there today by the time this is uploaded, actually. So it'll be the 1st of December. The links will be in the description, all that kind of shit. But bye, man, it's cool.
Excellent. I think that's banging price, and obviously you get all the added extras. And like you said, I think the audio diary would be quite interesting. I think you touched on a point there. We were discussing, I think, again in the prelude of clips. Clips is something that I do want to do. It's something that you're saying you find some sort of success with, and I think it is good to get people interested in the more longer format. If they see a snippet of something that, you know, spikes a bit of a curiosity and whatnot. And on the times that I have gone back and watched some of the podcasts that I do, I'm the same. I have no idea. I'm like, what the fuck is he going to say? What the fuck? Where are you going with this? And I'm like, oh, he saved it. It's cool.
The funniest part is when you don't agree with yourself. You're like, what the fuck's this guy? I don't agree with any of his opinions. Mate, this was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I say to people about the length of this. If you go back and watch, if you start on the earlier podcasts and you see the evolution of like the spaces that I've been in and done the podcast in, the guests that we've had, and you get some of the opinions, and I'm always changing my mind because I'm always trying to learn new shit. I'm not trying to be ideologically aligned to one thing. I'm trying to constantly check my own, you know, classism, my own ego, my own selfish desires and needs and wants, etc. in life in general, and have that kind of this honest conversation. I guess this is my weekly fucking audio diary in a way. But I think having that partnered with it'd be quite useful for, you know, I say young creatives, we're getting on now, people that, you know, in the space want to kind of understand what is behind that process, because same with this looks like just a couple of hours a week, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot of notes and a lot of, you know, research goes into what we do, and we care about the people that we're trying to get on the platforms. You have to then understand, you know, what those people have said and done, and make sure that, you know, platforming somebody that's done something atrocious without at least fucking having the conversation. Do you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think it's good to show people what goes on behind the scenes. So I think that's a great partnership. What the hell are they trying to say? Combination of things together for people for such a good price. Obviously, we come from the era of paying fucking 17 quid for a DVD. So,
to be honest, one of the things that I thought to myself was, I was like, people are going to be like, mate, you're a tenner subscription for your fucking animation series, but Netflix is like 9 quid. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, I know, but this is like independent shit. And not only that, they've got staff of thousands and thousands of people, unlimited funds, all that kind of shit. And if I'm only within a quid bracket of like this fucking £1 billion fucking organization, I think that's pretty fair, man. Because let's say it's like, it takes a month to do an episode, 6 weeks actually, if I'm not working, if I'm working. And the movie took 10 months. The reason why, because I did there's a 9, I think, or 10 audio diaries that starts in it's December 17th. That's the first one, and then the last one, I think, is 3 days after the premiere. So I did one on the premiere morning of like, right, this is the premiere morning. I don't know if it was like maybe 5 minutes long or something. But I did that, and the other behind the scenes things, and that's just obviously talking. Which it was weird. It was a bizarre thing. It's like, it was a bizarre sensation. It was on this doing the movie was entirely novel and unique for me in a lot of different ways. But the audio diary thing is something I'd never done before, and the feeling, because I even like at the beginning, it's like I'm recording this on a fucking wee handheld. Like you can even I could hear it. Like, mate, you don't know what to do here. This is just talking into my fucking hand, which I think I say. But it was weird because there's like it's like a cleansing. You got to be authentic. You're sitting in your own company. You're talking to a fucking your hand, man. It's weird. It's like, and I've got this animation actually. It's not related to Cannaman stuff, and it's called Interview with the Self. And it's kind of like that, where you're kind of like the interview for the self is complete once you've recorded it, forgotten what you said, and then listening to it back. Because when you're listening back, to your mind frame, but you have no knowledge of it. It's really kind of interesting, actually, because I see this kind of way, this self-analysis thing, right? And I'm really fortunate. I'm extremely grateful to be able to have all this, like these little outlets that have emerged as a consequence of doing the animation series. So when I look over, the fucking episodes, because I could have been doing the series trailers to try and fucking draw attention, because I'm putting them up there. So on YouTube channel, you're going to have all the Cannaman feature-length episode series trailers. And then obviously, but then you have the actual full episodes on the website for the subscription. So I've had to briefly look over all the episodes, doing the trailers for the first time. And some of these episodes, like, I've forgotten what they were. I've forgotten, like, be honest, there's a couple of times where I'm like, fuck's sake, man, how did I even upload this? I should have kept working on it. There's some of them, but so when I'm looking back, the reason I'm saying any of this is that there's almost like a psychoanalysis of myself when I'm looking over these episodes, because even though I'm looking at a story, it's obviously fictitious, I'm trying to construct it and all that kind of thing, I'm fully aware that the human psyche doesn't work on a blank slate fucking basis. It works, you produce something, like you could try and filter a story, but the story will be fucking tailored with your psychological dispositions of the moment. That's what it's like. So and it's kind of fun to look over the storylines, and I'm trying to like remembering the time that I was at, my mentality, what I was trying, like, it's kind of cool, man. It's kind of fun. And I got that experience from the audio diaries as well. So the audio diaries is the behind the scenes on the website as well. It certainly will be by Friday. And the other behind the scenes things is a 20-minute. So all the audio diaries maybe like an hour, just over an hour, individual, like 9 videos or something. And then there's a 20-minute behind the scenes video thing that I've recorded, which one of the video things was me like recording the folder that it's behind there, I'll leave it. But there's like so the folder I did has got all the sheets of paper in it from the movie. So when I first created the folder, I opened up the folder and I was like, right, and I'm recording this thing. There's not one sheet of fucking paper in it because I haven't started drawing yet. And I'm like, right, this is the folder. And I'm recording it with the video camera, and then it's the next scene of like putting all the labels in, and then the next thing's right, I've done scene 3, and so you're getting to see the folder slowly fill up essentially with the sheets of paper. And then it's that, and then I've also included, I think, a small amount of me recording actually in the cinema. And it's just like probably 3 or 4 seconds where I'm standing in the tech booth with one of the tech guys that started it, that played the movie. And I've recorded him like pressing the space bar, and I've turned around and then walked to the side, and I'm standing there, and you're looking at the Cannaman fucking thing come on the screen. And frustratingly, you can't see anybody in the audience, because they showed up, dickheads. No, I'm joking. It's because it's because the camera was shit. You know what I mean? The camera was, it was the way it was all shiny. I'm terrible with that kind of stuff. So you record and it looks like there's nobody there, man. You know, it's so funny. But
edit in a little crowd.
Edit in just some wee guy. It's like fucking Donnie in the fucking audience, man. But no, it was cool. So that's, and essentially I then I think, I'm not sure, but I then ended behind the scenes video with me just kind of talking, not on camera, but just kind of like, I think I'm looking at the newspaper actually, because obviously it was in the newspaper as well, which was cool. I mean, all of these things. I've got the newspaper, I've got the fucking tickets from the actual theatre at the back, and I've got like the posters that got handed out as well. So I've got those three things at the back of the folder with all the images and like the timeline and shit like that. So it's like, it's a cool thing. And that's what we said at the beginning of the conversation, that to have that kind of like memorabilia for myself, right? Even if like, I don't believe this for a second, it's probably just ego talking, but even if Cannaman doesn't ever get to like a Netflix stage or that level of fucking like popularity, even if it doesn't, on the last day when I'm looking back on my life, man, I'm like, this is cool, man. This is a cool story to make yourself. That's kind of like a cool thing. Like on a man, I did the Man in the Glass poem, and you're looking in the glass and talking to yourself as an individual person. That's kind of like a cool thing, you know.
No, yeah, 100%. I think it's important to have narrative, to have, I guess, in some way, a mythologizing of one's own life, not to be deluded or to get lost in fantasy. But sorry, go on.
No, sorry, it's simple. It's so funny that you say not to be deluded, because my mum called me that. My fucking mum called me that, man. I remember because she was like, because I was telling her, like, I'm going to do like this animation series. This is about 3 years ago, right? About 3.5 years ago. And I was like, I'm going to do an animation series, and I've just been doing these podcasts. I'm going to make an animation series. I'm going to do a comic book series first, and I'm going to then make it animated, and then I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. I didn't even mention the movie. I didn't even put my mind. And I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have an animation series, blah, blah, blah. And I remember going like, Conor, I mean, if you keep it's like, if you keep talking like this, people are going to think you're deluded. Genuinely, that was like 3 years ago. Man. So it's funny that. It's fucking brilliant.
What I was going to lead on to say is exactly that. Is its perception of what would be delusional to another person is a Tuesday to another. Do you know what I mean? It's those, having that, as you described it before, that kind of Bill Burr moment to yourself, and in the easier times, I guess, strengthening your sails and your rigging for tougher seas, prepares you for that. But ultimately, you need to be willing to leave the harbor and to, you know, face the storms to enjoy the calmer seas. That was a lot of nautical references up in here, but it worked quite well in terms of what I was telling. That was good,
especially like facing the seas, right? Because that's an interesting thing. Because as you're saying that, one of the things I noticed the most from doing the movie, one of the things I was taught, fortunately, you know, I'm grateful to be taught this kind of shit as a consequence of doing it, is if you up your stamina, that's it. They just increase your stamina for the craft that you're doing. So ordinarily, that's why I would give myself a destined fucking timeline of like, right, I need to get this done by this point. It doesn't really live that way. You get a shadow of what the thing has in potential by giving it a timeline. There's a really weird liberation that's associated with this. Doesn't have a timeline. This will be out when it's finished, when it's completely done. And I was fortunate because I did this, funnily enough, the fucking timeline of the movie for them. I'm going to do this scene, this scene, this scene. And it dictated to me. Literally, I was like, oh, I'm missing this bits and I should have done that by now, blah, blah, blah. And as long as I just kept going I was like, nah, this isn't like this. It's weird, man. It's really weird. It's like the thing that you're engaged, the craft you're engaged in is autonomous to a certain degree. And I think that the autonomy is created, at the very minimum, the autonomy of the craft, of the product that you're making is constructed based on the characteristics that the thing is. And I think so. It's like if a movie or like, I genuinely think there's a huge correlation between making animations and making music. Just the layering element. There's a weird layering fucking consistency between the two of them. That it seems to me that the only thing different is your instruments, your pencil or your pen, and the product you're producing is a visual thing, whereas the other thing's audio. That seems to be the only separation.
It's kind of, as we were discussing before, of that kind of alchemy. It's something I massively struggle with. It's probably an ego thing of art. It's all art. Again, I don't necessarily consider my writing to be art, but I some days, I guess, do recognize it. It's an internal battle, even in trying to verbalize this in this fucking sentence. I think is a good insight into the continuous fucking war within my brain about it. But ultimately what it is an attempt to convey to another person something that is so meaningful to an individual that they feel in some way twinned, in a sense of obligated and blessed to try to connect with another to. It's something beyond linguistics. It's beyond fucking body language and all these other mechanisms by which we have evolved to connect with each other, a means by which it's an extra. Do you know what I mean? And it's got meaning, as we were discussing again before we started recording about like AI art. We both came to the same thing about, I think I said it's kind of soulless, you said it lacks emotion. We're both detecting this thing that's missing, yet when a human creates that art, there's something more to it. It's not in the color, it's not in the layers, it's the subtext, as it were, in the written word. It's more to it, and it's that which you tap into that you don't read or understand verbally. You know, you don't smell it, you don't discern it into shape or color necessarily, you just get the thing. That's the fucking power of what I think all of this comes down to. And I think all of us have a drive towards that in some way. Just it looks different to different fucking people, you know.
I think it's perfect actually you saying that, because when they talked earlier about that sad moment, that's like I was feeling that the whole time I was drawing that thing and fucking writing it and doing the voice for it, and like at every moment of that stage when I was making that, I was like, there was never a moment where I wasn't feeling the feeling, and I think that's it was. I don't know, and it also helps as well. Like I feel like I know Cannaman and Donnie as if they're actual independent people. Like that is so weird. It's like that's what it feels like. It feels like, I mean, I love these guys, like properly love them. I couldn't, like, I think I'd say that it's funny because obviously a barber he's a huge support. Sounds silly to say that, but it totally is, man. He's like, to be honest, he's been kind of snookered. I've been sitting there like paying him to fucking cut my hair as I tell him all this shit, right? Holding him prisoner. But essentially, I'd said this to him about like the whole, that it feels like Cannaman and Donnie are real people. And I could never stop creating them or producing them and making them, because if I did, it's like the world wouldn't get to see them. But it also feels like that as independent people, Cannaman and Donnie would be like, mate, you're up your dick. Like you're like actually, like, you know that feeling of like you're supposed to help out somebody, but you don't help them out, and now they're looking at you like you're a bit of a dick, man. Imagine doing that. You're up your dick. That's how I feel. Like if I didn't do that, they'd be like, you're up your dick, man. Imagine no drawing us, man. What up your dick? You know what I mean? And that's what it feels like. And it's cool because I get these. There's what's kind of peculiar is recently. So I've been doing that thing in my mind where I was like, what can I do to up it? What can I do to up my game? Like when it comes to like the theatre was cool. The Donnie one will be ready next year, but I need to up this. This needs, what would this look like if I was a weird thought technique I was doing the other day when I was drawing. I was like, what would it look like if I had the capacity, the facilities that the Simpsons have got? Like what would the Cannaman, what would it look like if I had that? If I had like boom, there you go, you got a month free fucking invite. There you go, you can come and do it for a month. And in my mind, and it's kind of fun, right? Mainly because there's a weird blocking feeling of like I've not ventured there psychologically. Like I've not, like, I don't know if it's but I feel a block immediately. It's not like whereas doing another movie, it feels like I've got room to move. This is fine. This is familiar. Whereas when I think about like, what if you had all of your possible ambition and they got handed it, how would it look? And there's a weird, it's like I've no structured anything yet. It's bizarre. And it's fun as anything because I'm like, I wonder, it feels like the more I do that question, the more the darkness becomes a bit light and I can see it. That's what it feels like. It feels like I have to keep asking myself it over and over and over, and then it's slowly emerging in my mind. That's what it feels like. So that's what makes me think that it feels like this is autonomous, because it's like I'm not choosing what it looks like. It feels like I'm searching to kind of like the architect guy, the archaeologist. That's it. When he's kind of fucking getting away with the shit, and he's finding the bones under the fucking soil where they're chipping away at it. That's what it feels like. That chipping away is the equivalency of just thinking on it. You know?
Yeah, it's you're revealing it to yourself through your own work. It's something that I get lost in every now and then, at least a couple of times in a good article anyway, when I feel good about the article. It's like Satori, is the Zen Buddhist describe it, that kind of brief enlightenment of just, it's always recognized in retrospect. You kind of have this what the fuck, what was I thinking, what was I doing? But in such a bliss, peaceful way. And that's, you just experience Tori. You are just in an enlightened, aligned consciousness that you are not thinking about thinking, you just are. And you can act like this. A lot of people will find it like doing washing up or like washing a car or something that's got a nice repetitive kind of physical motion to it that you can kind of get zoned into it. As you spoke of before, like the kind of that hyper focus, I suppose, or that kind of flow state. And when I'm kind of writing, I'll have those moments where I'm just, and my fingers are typing and I'm not even though I know the fucking keyboard inside and out, still 90% of the time I'm having to check, double check, like, is it the right one? Is it the right one? But then it'll just go and I'll almost like be able to kind of look at something else and lose myself into it. And it appears on the screen and my fingers just do it. And then kind of go, oh, that's good. That's fucking real good. Do you know what I mean? And then you kind of go back and change a few things or whatever. But so every now and then it'll just kind of just go and I'm like, the fuck? Like I was just trying to outline something today. I'm not going to give away the title because the title will give away the whole thing. But it's quite. I'm building this based on a 5-word title because it's a pun and I love it.
Nice.
But I knocked out like 700 words today of just going, well, I need to reference this. I want to reference this. How would I want this to sound? It's going to end roughly with this kind of summation of kind of the previous things. And that was entirely, I suppose, my best work comes from active procrastination of other jobs. As long as I've got one thing that is important enough that needs to be done, but not too important that I can keep pushing it back, it allows me to procrastinate from doing that and get all the other things done. And that was basically what happened today. It was like you were saying, like I'm struggling to focus on the thing I need to do, so I'm going to go and do this other thing that I've got months to do. And because of it, it was like, I'm not having to do the thing I need to do, but I'm doing something else. It is like kind of biohacking, but it's also like I felt like I was cheekily cheating myself, but that myself wouldn't be mad at myself. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? If you're like, I'll give you this, you know.
Like it, man. It's good.
I've got quite a few questions about the fucking movie here that I want to ask you, since we've gone on quite a few tangents there, as is always the case with this podcast. So yeah, obviously legit director now. You're working on next movie. Something that I came up with when I was rewatching today was just basically, it was more of a joke, but I was like, I need to ask this question. Would you consider creating a drug man cinematic multiverse? So in my head was just your version of writing, but every character was a drug, and somehow all of the drug superheroes got pulled into this overarching story, and it was like a kind of a parody of Marvel, but also like a comment on the societal consequences and stereotypes of each individual drug user. And yeah, it was just quite hilarious in my brain.
So what's so funny about that, right? What's so funny is because I've had lots of people ask me that kind of thing, and I suppose I really enjoy it a lot, right? And I hope I never stop enjoying it, because what happens on every occasion is that the person's telling me something, a small amount about how they think about things. That's what's going on. Like they're literally telling me, here's a little bit of my mind. Because it's like, because they come up with it, it's this imagination thing, but it's a consequence of a foundation of principles, values, morals, blah blah blah. But then and that's where the dissecting thing is, and that's what makes me laugh. You're like, yeah, Cannaman, let's make a fucking drug thing, because I don't even see. I forget that he's cannabis sometimes. I have to throw in a joint. I have to fucking throw in a plant, because I'm like trying to. It's really interesting. It's that whole, when you talk about the universe thing. I've done that same thought process where it's like, with it. So I'm doing the most recent episode, season 2, episode 5. It's going to be uploaded maybe Christmas Day, maybe just before. I'm not too sure yet, but yeah, you can find it on the website as well. Super fucking cheap ass plug. But yeah, and that's essentially what I thought when I'm doing this fucking episode, right? Where I was like, there's a part of it where it's called For Fishing's Sake, so Cannaman and Donnie go fishing essentially, and there's a part of it and it's right at the back. There's like a lock at the back behind the Cannaman's house, and I thought this, and I was like, how would I construct it? Like, so, and I'll do like maybe a picture that encompasses all of it, and I get to see like the immediate landscape, the entire fucking thing. I've not done it yet, and I'm two minds whether or not, because the angle might be just, that's a side point, but I'm in two minds whether or not to create that. And so it's passed my mind, what would the world of that be like? Because there was a moment where it was actually Gary, you mentioned it, Dr. Gary Yates, he'd said this about when I was talking to him about the film, and he was like, when he was watching the film, there's a moment where, because there was a moment where he was kind of like, where the fuck are they going? And obviously, spoiler alert, watch the film. If this bugs you, by the way, you should have watched the film by now, right? So essentially it's when they go to the island, they're on their way to the island, and then Gary said to me, he's like, what the fuck's this? There's no an island just outside. Like, where the fuck are they? It's like just outside Scotland. And that's what one of the funny things in my head was. So that island's actually drawn based on an image that I found that's in New Zealand, right? And I did that for more of a sentimental reason, connected to family and stuff. What was funny about that is just Gary saying, like, what the fuck? Like, because I had the same idea of like the literal basis of the scenery compared to the fucking fantasy of what you're trying to create. And it's an interesting fucking thing to look at when you're looking at, like, it's like a philosophical game. Like the reality versus fiction and what you're trying to achieve in the fictitious world, but also try to maintain a balance towards reality that people can identify that this is not too far, right? And this is like, and because I think that's what's interesting as well that I found out when it comes to the movie. The entire thing is of a movie, from the experience of doing that one anyway, is kind of like creating a context, perspective, and structure in the mind of the person. So you've got to make sure that they're stable, that they're and when I say stable, they mean they're stable in where you are in the film. So one of the things I noticed about this is if I put them straight on the island without creating an image of the island, people have no touching point. They've no touch and base element. So they interpret it as a feeling of, I don't like this. And they don't even know why. They're just kind of they're like, I don't like that. And if you do that half a dozen times throughout the fucking process, where you're just throwing them into a scene and they don't actually know the wider context of what the scene is, they'll conclude with, this film's kind of shit, because they've not been given knowledge. They're looking for like an understanding. So it's just like you see it with sitcoms as well. They'll do like the intro scene, like the intro tune, and they'll throw up a picture of a building, and then they'll go inside the building. So it's like Friends. It's like tons of different buildings in New York, but they think it's the same one.
But yeah, they've started to do it in movies. Think of most action movies like Mission Impossible, things like that, and then you got like it comes up and it's the city and the country.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's because what it does is it takes everything and limits it to it. I mean, it kind of also plays towards certain individual prejudices, I guess. If they're like, oh, they're in Czechia, like former Czech Republic, some people are like, got this or this, like they're vision of what it's going to be. So then if they just suddenly throw in Eastern Europe, the quintessential Eastern European gangster type, just with guns shouting in a foreign language, it's a Western audience is already taken into it, as you say, but it's quite jarring if all of a sudden it's not dealt with in the same sort of way. But I think it's doing it like that with the words on screen is just lazy storytelling. It's you can visually do exactly as you are describing, and it's something that you have to be mindful of. Everybody wants to be Kubrick on one fucking side, but you also have to be, I can't think of someone on either end of the fucking directorial spectrum.
Do you know what's mental, right? Do you know what's mental? In my mind, it's probably ego, but I also think it's a prerequisite for success. That in my mind, and the idea with he wishes to be Kubrick is like, fuck man, he wishes he was me. That's how he should be. I tell my son this all the time, right? My son, it was the greatest response, and he's only 9, the greatest response I've ever heard from any human about, I would say, healthy personal interpretation or well-being or that kind of stuff. And I'd asked him, we're sitting on the couch, and he asked, we're sitting there joking back and forth and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, yeah, so if you could be any person in the world, you could be a scientist, engineer, celebrity, blah blah blah, who would you be? And he was just kind of sitting there for a minute watching TV, and then he kind of looked at me and went, I would be me, Daddy. I'd still just be me. And I was like, that's fucking, I was like, you're awesome, mister. I'm giving him a big cuddle, right? Because what that is, it's like that, like you have the opportunity to be any human, right? But you're like, nah man, I'm cool with me, man. Like that's fucking healthy, man. That's like, because the whole point is, like, there's other humans. I wish I was them. Fuck's sake. And that's what my approach is towards any form of the work that I'm doing. It's like, nah, man, I'm the guy. I'm the original guy. Stanley Kubrick thought he was an original guy, and he produced original work. So
you're touching on there is a trick that happens linguistically that falls apart within our language. Is we are supposed to aspire to acts of. Not the individual base of, we can be I suppose in some way it can be healthy to have some form of envy, whereas then a straight up form of sort of jealousy of not wanting others to have something because you can't have it in that spiteful kind of means. But envy can be a motivator in a sense of, I want what they have. That is also in some ways a healthy thing, dependent on how it's manifest. If you're going, I want your shit, ergo I'm going to take your shit.
No.
That's not good. But if you then go, I see this person, I quite like what they've got with this and that. If I work hard and rearrange and focus on my life, I could maybe achieve some of those things. I think the issue then comes in society now at the minute is the spectral differences between, and people are then focusing on wanting shit that they can't imagine, and most of it is just a stand-in for security. I think when you really boil it all down to, and I think what your son is speaking to there is an understanding that he is safe in his identity, but also safe in who he wants to be. He feels he has a future, and I think having the father figure like yourself around as much as can be, given the circumstance of someone who's actually doing the work, as in behind you with all of your books, all of the illustrations that you've worked on, the series, the animations, the movie, that is actively doing the work, regardless of what anyone may choose to think of the content of it. The nature of your persistence, the discipline behind that sets a hell of a tone and a message. And I think that, as we've spoke of in every podcast that we've spoken of, is that pursuit of mastery, as you say. And it isn't that tick, 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 tick up the way. It's that roller coaster of a fucking thing that, and even the end, it isn't ultimately the end. Again, I think like Michelangelo died fucking, what was it, at 84, and his last words were like, I'm still learning, you know, I'm still trying, I'm still trying to fucking figure this shit out, basically, you know. Yeah. And I think that's again healthy, is to have that thing. And there's part of me that, again, as you're asking that question, I was answering it to myself, and part of me is like, wait, I'm lazy in some ways, so I don't want to have to learn to be somebody else first and foremost. But then it is that case of, well, I would end up with their shit and then try and be me. Do you know what I mean? If you follow that thought experiment out there, you are you right now and you stay as you are, but all of a sudden, boom, you wake up and you're in fucking Brad Pitt's house. You've got to wear his slippers. You've got to wear all his fucking clothes, drive his fucking, you've got to live like you would want to tweak and change things. So therefore you don't actually want to be like that. There is something else at play. And for most people, it is a drive again towards prosperity, towards what used to be, I suppose, an inbuilt requisite post World War II in the Western world, which was your life will get better. If you have kids, your kids' life will get better. And that myth, that narrative, that thing is kind of collapsing around. And I think now people want that shortcut to the thing. So they'd rather, what did I watch recently? The fucking thing about the Theranos lassie, Elizabeth Holmes. Do you know Theranos? The fucking thing in America. It was like, she basically defrauded like dozens of fucking people, hundreds of fucking people to be on like a board and part of this company, where she'd basically come up with this creation allegedly called the Edison, and it was like a single drop of blood and we could do like 200 fucking different tests and revolutionize the industry and disrupt like a $7 billion a year industry, etc. And it was all just predicated on ultimately bullshit, and her vision of wanting to be Steve Jobs. And in this 8-part series, they're kind of watching the evolution of her changing her character and trying to, like, you know, wearing black turtlenecks and deepen her voice and everything about it. And it became more about the what she thinks others think about her because of what she thinks about Steve Jobs and that projection of it. And it became a one-woman pageantry. And it became a spinning the lies on the plates of lies, and just continuing the charade in any which way that could be maintained, for her to have that game. And I think that's what's happening with most people, is they're deluded in that space. I think that's why so many people simp for billionaires, is they're going, well, if I just win this lottery and then I'm extra smart, I'll put it into stocks and then I'll be extra rich and I'll do this and I'll just invest in this thing. And everyone's looking for the quick money escape just to have more money, rather than the craft, and then consequently being rewarded with the money.
Thing is, I couldn't agree more with what you just said there, specifically when you're talking about rather than the craft, right? Because I've thought about that lots. What if, in the same context as I've had Simpsons available, if somebody went, right, there you go, there's fucking 50 million, right? We now own all of Cannaman. You're not allowed to draw him ever again. This is now ours. You can't draw this guy ever again. I would 100% say no. Like, I can't emphasize that enough, right? Because one of the things I've realized is like every single time I'm producing something, there's a liberation there, right? And how many people do you see that have engaged in something and then they're soulless as fuck 20 years after the thing's been made because they've sold it off and they can no longer identify themselves as that thing? I was like, the only way that Cannaman will ever be put into the fucking the arena of that kind of context is if I'm still number one everything funnels through me. Like I'm the fucking guy that like because one of the things I've realized, it's that whole micro macro thing is, so I do all the micro actions relating to the creating the animation series and the movie. So I do obviously from the soundtrack to the storyboards to the actual drawing to the coloring, to the editing to the everything like in between all that kind of shit, right? The scene fucking rendering and all that kind of shit. So I do every one of those micro things. That's a team. Each single one of those is a team. So if I put like 4 people on that, 4 people on this, 4 people on that one, 4 people on the soundtrack, 4 on the fucking edit and blah, blah, blah. And all I did was I did the creative side and the imaginative side, and I constructed everything, and they just did the mechanics of it, right? I'd be up for that. But I'm still the owner. I still own all this kind of shit. But you can join on this and you can fucking like amplify the level of productivity I can apply to this. Cool, man, I'm up for that. You know what I mean? Because then you're still in control. You're the one that owns it. And what's really fucking helpful, quite honestly, with a lot of this is people like Chris Webby, NF, Dax. These are all independent music artists. Ren that does fucking High Ren. That's a great example of it as well. Like, these are all independent fucking music artists who own all of their craft, and yet they're still making a comfortable living through the correct channels that are in place for us now. And that's the main thing, is that there's nothing wrong with been able to buy one fucking house. You don't need to have billions of fucking pound in the bank that you're not going to be spend. Mm-hmm. If you can buy one house and you keep ownership of your craft, you've won life. Like, life has been completed there.
But again, that's the thing. It's the myth thing. The Tom Hartman quote that I always end up quoting on this, of the lie of kind of the capitalism. If you're alone naked in the woods at night and somebody comes and offers you clothing and fire and food and shelter, you get pretty happy pretty quick. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth of reality. The lie of capitalism is, if X amount made you X happy, X more will make it X more happy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And we've all got that into us. And for some reason, we have this internalized thing of going, no, I want a shortcut now. Mm-hmm. I want to retire tomorrow and live like a god. And that's a mentality that's been put into us because as the system in late stage capitalism starts to devour itself, the rich are getting closer together. There may be more billionaires, but where the fuck is the middle class? Do you know what I mean? The economics are collapsing, so they're wanting I want a 400 billion pound yacht. All right, cool. I want a 500 billion pound yacht. Well, I want a 600 billion yacht. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, what the fuck are you dickheads doing? Do you know what I mean? I want to go to fucking space first. I'm gonna go. My rocket's bigger than yours. My rocket. It's like, what the fuck?
You know, it's funny.
It got so fucking disproportionate. You know.
I was talking to my oldest. He's 18 today, actually. Well, he was talking about it. I was like, yeah, if I had this, like, fucking this amount of coin and that kind of thing, and because he's playing Grand Theft Auto, he's like, I'd buy a yacht this size. And I was like, you know what's funny? And I was talking to myself, like, a yacht is one of the biggest pieces of, like, I shouldn't have bought this out there. You know what I mean? It's like a yacht. Like, that's what you're looking at. It's like a house on the sea. What the fuck is a yacht? A yacht's an example of too much money and not enough sense to apply it somewhere. That's what you got a fucking yacht. What the fuck is that? I don't know, man. It's just one personal. Like, if you're kicking out on a yacht, it's like, I don't know. That says something more. That's not just like an item you've bought. That's like a statement of some kind. I don't know what the fuck that is.
Exactly. It's success. And without going into too much of sort of a rant on the economics of it, which is what we end up doing basically every week on this bloody podcast. But it's the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Remember the little triangle?
Yeah.
And they somehow get stuck like 3 rungs up. The self-awareness element and the self-actualization. I mean, obviously he never really completed the model, but that's kind of where the end point of the triangle of the model that he was working on at the time kind of ends, is conscious awareness. And so that's that recognition, exactly, that if you had all the shit in the world, you would still want to do something. Mm-hmm. You would be Bart when he's given everything at Mr. Burns' mansion. You'd only play the games for so long. You could only go down the slides for so long and drive the little bumper carts and all the fucking rest of it. Eventually, you want to express yourself because that's what we are biologically driven to do, to connect with each other. Like sexually, there is a reproductive fucking drive in us to connect, to reproduce. Obviously not in all. I'm not overgeneralizing. Don't fucking get at me. I'm talking just as a purely mean biological thing here, as in like the mean of the average biological experience.
Yeah, I mean, in order to ensure the sustainability of the species, it's fucking necessary. That's not even a talking point. That's almost but that's not even needed, man.
But so is art equally to this. So is the expression. Even bad expression leads to better expression if you don't have censorship. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Some idiot comes up and goes, "Oh, it says something insane." then you counter that shit. You don't censor that shit and push it away, because then all the other insane things that you push together become even more insane, and then it spills out, and then you've got no rebuttal for the massive monster of insanity because you didn't articulate the other parts of it, because everyone is driven to, yeah, but how much money can I make? People aren't going, well, do you know what I want to do in my life is do this. And I'm not talking about, again, everybody, but the overarching story of the Western capitalism and the neoliberalistic paradigm is toward this. You need more. You need security. You need not just your house. You need the 2 cars. You deserve 4 holidays a fucking year. Your kids deserve to have to pay for the best tuition. You deserve to pay for the best healthcare. You deserve to. Do you know what I mean? And it's perverse that they've then got us destroying ourselves to fund systems for them to live the illusion, act upon the stage, so that the others will work upon this. They are the carrots on the stick of the donkeys, and we're just marching up the treadmill, keeping the fucking lights on. You know what I mean?
No. Hang on, I'm going to go for a push, man. You will just edit this out.
Yeah, man, sure.
All right, awesome. 2 minutes.
Got a couple more questions on the movie that
fire away, man.
Could be some fun here. All right, let's say then you're allowed all creative rights. You're offered whatever amount of money you find is necessary and that you're happy with. Hollywood basically goes, all right, we want a live action version of this. Who's playing who?
Well, like, so it's like when you say live action, is that like a film, a normal film?
Yeah, it's not animation. It's a live action.
Right. I don't know how Donnie would be made. Like Donnie would be kind of like a Garfield.
Be kind of like Scooby-Doo in those Scooby-Doo movies that were the best Scooby-Doo movies.
Who would I play as Cannaman? Me. I would have to, like, I struggle to have anybody else. Like, I would, the movie, like, even if it meant me being Cannaman and the movie fucking plummeting in value and, like, nobody, the entire brand is expired, I'll go down with that ship in my hand, like, yes, man, I made it.
Nice. I was thinking Vin Diesel for Crawford, personally.
Right, okay.
I think there's something there. There's that kind of, yeah, I don't have to. I haven't seen him in films recently. I don't know what he's looking like in the Fast franchise, but
yeah, he'd have to slim down. Do you know what's interesting with the Crawford? That was just the first name that came to mind, and he's been featured on 2 episodes as well, 2 other episodes. And I never once named him. And it was in the movie. I was like, I'm gonna have to give him a fucking name or something. Yeah, and that was why I was just like, oh, Agent Crawford. And I was all right, okay, that's what it's called.
Did you ever read Thomas Harris? Although they obviously made the movie a bit. I was gonna say Silence of the Lambs.
Maybe, I think, was that Jodie Foster?
Yeah, I think that Agent Crawford is one of the senior field agents.
Is that right?
If I remember correctly, it's been.
I wouldn't be quick. Yeah, that kind of thing happens all the time. Like that happened to was it Nietzsche or something? So Carl Jung had I can't remember. I'm going to fucking butcher this. I think Freud had wrote in one of his books. He created a story or something like that, right? And he, like, gave it to himself as like the originator. That's what it was implied based on this. And I'm pretty certain Jung had identified that it wasn't Freud. Freud had read it from like Nietzsche's work, and it was it was like Zarathustra or something like that, or something like that. So yeah, man, I wouldn't be surprised. Like if I've maybe seen that film once. You know, it would have been years ago. So I'd be surprised if it was like that. It's probably a relatively generic name, you know.
It's interesting as well. It's like kind of morphic resonance. If you look at like Rupert Sheldrake's work, if he sort of described about formations of crystals and of new compounds and matter and how they become of ease the more the iterations of them happen. The same sort of thing is observable in behaviors. So they saw it in sort of crows learning to peck into milk bottles, and then this behavior sort of appeared. It's where we get like that 100th monkey paradigm kind of thing of a certain percentage, and then a behavior becomes universal. But yeah, it's interesting. Just Googled it there, and yeah, Agent Jack Crawford was the senior agent in charge in the Silence of the Lambs movie. So again, but it's also like it's out there, so you tap into it, and whether you've kind of heard it or not, I think that we're through everyone's consciousness. It's almost like we're realigning and reforming through action, intention, and thought. our quantum reality around us. So you can be one thing and have one conversation, have your entire world changed, who you think you are, how you look at the world. I think that's one of the wonderful things, again, of like the creative form of, you are ultimately trying to express yourself in one way. And as I often say, this is my therapy. But in another way, I'm also trying to connect with people and get them to not identify and agree with me just out of a purely egoic thing, but to kind of go, well, all right, if I agree with that, or I want to kind of challenge that, and just go on that journey, and to know that others are on that journey as well, it just makes you feel less lonely. It's as Ram Dass said, fucking, we're all just walking each other home. And that's just kind of what it feels like. We're all just kind of moving along and point and look at something and disagree about it, but you'll talk about it and realize, well, that probably wasn't important. Talk about the things you agree with, you know? Isn't to say don't talk about the other subjects, but it's to remember that we have far more in common with even the people that you've deemed to be your worst enemy, most antithetical individuals compared to your own current paradigm of existence. Still far more in common with them than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. And the thing is, what's interesting about that as well is life kind of becomes what you focus on. Because even when you said that, you're like, you know, it's not to acknowledge the negatives in life. It's certainly not to indicate that at all, because obviously the certain negative elements in life need to be addressed in order to reduce them, fix them, get them out of the way. If, like, you can never completely remove any negativity in life, because that's the nature of the spectrum. That's just the reality of the yin and yang, order and chaos, all that kind of shit. All you can do is manage it in a certain way. But one of the things that definitely I would say is that whatever you focus on every single day, that is 100% what your life becomes, like completely defined by that thing. Like, and I can't emphasize it enough. Like the amount of the level of disinterest I have to anything in politics is impressive, quite honestly. Like, and it's not to say that politics isn't necessary. It's just to say that my life is tailored in a way that doesn't see its utility to be spoken about, because you have to be active, you have to do stuff, you have to kind of narrate all that kind of shit, and the list of that kind of thing goes on. If somebody was talking about golf and all that, I couldn't even, you know what it's kind of like as well, it's kind of funny. When I was young, I used to be super into football, like all the time. Like I had teams and all that kind of shit, and like highlights, and I'd be like totally engaged. Nowadays, I say this to my son the other day, my level of interest in football is I watch a highlight, right? I watch it, have no idea what stage in the league either team is, and just enjoy the game and turn it off. And that's literally what it's like. So the game's got drama in it, but I have no knowledge of it, because it takes energy to go over there. Also interested in that kind of shit and what you're focused on. But yeah, just essentially that's all. It's just that I genuinely, it's a really helpful thing for navigating away from things that are stressful, or fucking, like, you can't remove it from your life straight away, but like, it's going to take time. So what can you do? You can kind of fucking focus on something that's like, you know, productive, positive, and it alleviates you for that shit, you know?
Well, it's, yeah, when you think of it in a neurological kind of way, you have an ingrained pathway that is stimulated overly so, because it's used to that usual flow state, but then kind of butcher the state of flow rather than a flow state through the brain. Whereas then you've got to consciously learn another behavior. You've got to dig a new ditch and convince that energy to go down there. But once you do, the other ditch gets smaller, and that one becomes that new ingrained pathway. It's about recognizing that, yeah, you can obviously, by all manner of things, go cold turkey, I suppose. Some things you can wean down, you can replace things or whatever else, but you should ultimately always have something else to focus on, in a way, to not necessarily fall back on, but to know that you've got there to move forward. As long as you're always going forward, if that's your main channel, and you've done, all right, I can't move forward with this, let's move with this, and build that up until that overgrows and moves around it. And it's just like a plant growing. You're chasing that sun. That sun is the motivation within you, that passion, that thing that most people, I think, struggle to verbalize, let alone ever have the ability, the fortitude, the position of privilege, or the opportunity to manifest. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of people have, like I said, have this thing, that spark, whatever this word is, this stand-in that we're using. But I don't think that they've had the opportunity to sit with themselves long enough to recognize it. Or worse, they've brought it out and they've had it crushed in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's the worst thing, is you see it in, obviously, kids, man. That's why I was saying good on you for the way you're raising your son, man, is that so many people through not just their conscious words and what they'll do to raise their child in terms of discouraging them or encouraging certain behaviors, but in terms of the actions and the example that is set for them, you know?
No, I appreciate that a lot, man. I think he's actually in a lot of them. And it's funny because when I've been doing these series, the trailers for the series, I forgot that it's like his voice will pop up. Like, oh yeah, I forgot he did that voice. Like, so there's one of them where he runs, I think it's a hemp in hand, I think. Yeah, it's that one. And essentially Cannaman runs out of the fucking building and there's a red van. And I remembered that I forgot, quite honestly, about what I'd watched later on. I was like, oh yeah. But essentially there's a voice where it's Cannaman's like, yeah, I'll tell you about hemp. And then like, yeah, essentially turns around and says that. He goes, I'll tell you. And he goes to jump in. And then Cannaman kind of shoots him down. He's like, I'm standing here in a fucking cannabis outfit, man. I've got it covered. You know, that kind of shit. And he also does this bit where when they're on at the building, there's a red van and he shouts, he's like, go, let's go, go, go. I forgot he did that. So I'm like, oh yeah. So it's kind of cool, man, because it's like, you know, it's the same. Both of them are in the movie as well. You know, they're the birds in the movie. So it's fucking, I mean, what's like, I should ask you, what was your favorite part? Like when you watched it, you've seen it twice now. You watched it in the theater, which again, man, incredibly grateful that you came over to watch it. That was insane. For you to be able to watch it. But
it's a piece of history, man. It's my pleasure. Because again, it's to share in that space that you had created. As I've made events, I've never quite animated and produced in the same way, but I've deliberately set up and produced events to create that, and I know the power, as we spoke of that. And yeah, I suppose quite maybe selfishly, I wanted to share in that. Do you know what I mean? But I also
that's not selfish.
That's there to show support. But it was
that's not selfish, man. Sorry to interrupt, but that's you're like individuals such as yourself is the exact definition of the event. Like quite honestly, it's almost second. It's like the product's almost secondary to the attendees. Essentially, like that is sincerely on the very depth of it like that, because without people showing up to watch it, there's nothing to see. Like if I wasn't like, if it's that thing, if the art's on the wall and there's nobody to see it, is there still art present? You know what I mean? So
that's the creative version of A Tree Falls in the Woods. That is, no, you make a very valid point.
You know, so it's like you're like, honestly, I appreciate it a lot. You've been there, but yeah, I mean, what's your favorite part? Would you say?
I massively enjoyed. I'm gonna just. This is going to be huge spoil. I'll give you a warning now, guys. Spoilers. If you really don't want to hear some insight in the movie, fucking give me 2 minutes. I thought the intro was fucking fantastic, hilarious, good subversion. Yeah. We've seen it in a few other things that have adapted, but I thought your execution of it was very good in terms of the roast of the audience. I massively fucking enjoyed the parody of the adverts. I thought they were fucking hilarious. One of my questions here is, would you consider actually doing just a standalone thing of just parodying fucking adverts, because they were fucking hilarious. Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that, man. Right, because the thing is, I've thought of it. That's so funny. There has been like that's passed my mind. So I've got one. The only ones I'll mention, right? And it came from an idea. We're sitting with my son. We're sitting playing FIFA, and so I've had an idea of an ongoing little parody type thing like that. And it's two commentators, and it's one commentator that's just a dick to the other one, not even meaning it. And it's taken for FIFA. We're sitting playing FIFA, and it's like the guy's like, yeah, so I'm fucking Derek Steves. Well, I can't remember the fucking name. I'm Derek Steves. I'm here with fucking Stuart Irwin. How you doing, Stuart? Yeah, well, Derek is good. Not right now, Stuart. There's this fucking thing happening. That kind of shit, right? Yeah. And so you could really play on that in a lot of different circumstances. Where the guy on the left, fucking Stuart's actually like, so how are you today, Stuart? He's like, oh yeah, I mean, me and my wife's just fucking. I've just found out she's cheating on me and that, and my kids they hate me. Well, we have no time for this, Stuart. Blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's that kind of shit. And I was like, that'd be funny as fuck if we were to fucking make that, and you know, that kind of shit. But yeah, apart from that, no. And what's funny about the adverts as well? What were you going to say?
So I was just in my head there was just you build the structure of them two, and it's just different sports every episode, and they just get more and more absurd. Like, but it's of like an extreme, like you know, the Mexican goal kind of thing of like that energy and like curling or chess commentary. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we're here at like the Scouts of America finals of dodgeball under 12s, or whatever. And get absurder and just like, yeah, I think having the grounding of the two commentators with that established relationship and just changing that frame, because again, you can go around the world and comment on other things that are brought into it. Yeah, I think that's hilarious. Sorry, you were going to say about the other adverts.
No, that's interesting you saying that as well, man, because that was a really creative little turn you took there. Like, that's interesting, because what's happened there is you suggesting that, like, the sport to change, because I never changed my mind. It was always football, right? And that's a rigid thing. So that was a creative fucking point to make, because if the sport's changing, you've just opened up an extra 3 seasons of fucking content just by that variance. So no, that's fucking high five, man. The advert wise, interestingly, it was a fucking peculiar thing, man. So I was not going to put in the third, again, ultra spoiler. This is the last time this will be said. If you've not watched the film and you're pissed off, that's unacceptable. Like, that's just no case. But no, so the adverts, it's like the Thoragra, right? That was, so in my mind, I was like, I was going to try and construct a snoozle bar and try and actually sell it at the event. But I'll be honest, man, I got about 3 or 4 weeks out, and I just was fatigued. I was like, the logistics of making this happen wasn't even there, and I was just like, fuck it. And I do feel disappointed about that, because it does feel like it was equivalent to me being like going 95%, you know. So I was like, I had the idea, so I should have manifested it and brought it into existence, but I just didn't. I was like, fuck it. So there's a part of me that's kind of like, mate, you should have had that in the folder. There should have been a snoozle bar wrapper in the folder, you know. And that's where these learning curves will be handy for the next time. And it's kind of like making sure that it's like when you have that, because it's a similar feeling, it's just dressed differently, it's different context, you know, but it'll be the same feeling again, where I'll be like, nah, I have the choice to do this idea or not, and I'll remember that moment of like, you're missing a fucking snoozle bar in the folder kind of thing. But yeah, so the snoozle bar and the Thoragra were the two, they came about as an idea where I was like, I need to have something concurrent throughout the entire thing. I need to make it so that there's like a thing mentioned continuously, because it will allow the viewer to have, like, again, a familiarity of touch and base. I'm like, I remember that, we're all sharing in this experience. And I was like, right, I have to have something that's like that. And I was trying to think, and at the very beginning, it was funny, when I was doing the audios and I heard myself recording it, I was writing snoozle bar in the script, and I was recording and calling it a snuggle bar. So I was editing over, and I was like, I was like, it's a snoozle bar, dickhead, you know, and I just forgot, because at the time I hadn't even decided what I was calling it yet, you know, so it's kind of funny.
See, because of I know your voice, and I've just literally watched it in my head. There was like Valentine's Day special snuggle bar, and it's like infused with fucking whatever, like Chinese herbs that are like aphrodisiacs and whatever else, and it's like limited edition.
The thing is, no, what's funny though is I was going to have the snoozle bar infused with CBD, and I was going to sell, because I'll be like, hey, that's the cannabis theme there, so I'd have that in it, but it never happened, and I should have done it. I'm relatively disappointed.
Do you remember that? I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith in his movies, and obviously he got the opportunity the other year to release Jay and Silent Bob as like a cannabis company, and they do Snoogan's Snoochie Boochies, something else of like joints pre-rolls of cultivars that they've selected for this. So in my head, I can see in the future like a line of these things, like Thoragra again as being like a cannabis supplement for the vitality in the bedroom. Like the snoozle bar again will be like 500 milligrams warning.
I think it's funny that, because with the Thoragra, so that's what was interesting between those adverts, obviously, is the Amsterdam advert, and that's essentially the foundation for the film. That's essentially, so I was like, well, that will be a good, again, that kind of fizzled itself down. So that was one of those moments where I was kind of like, I need to have adverts, and I was like, obviously, I try to think about where they were going. You know, I was like, I'll make it so I was like, Amsterdam's just cannabis. So I was like, this is a stoner film, but at the same time, I want there to be like a depth of philosophy behind it. So, and that's what was kind of cool, because it's kind of like that chipping away thing where we were talking about before, whereas over the course of days and weeks as I'm drawn, so at the same time as there's 2 parts to it. I'll have the storyboard, essentially the pad, and I'll draw like loose sketches based on the imagery that's present straight away, right? And this is where it's like, you know, and that's where it begins. It's just like loose sketches first, and then it's kind of like a back and forth of in my mind and outside. That's what it's kind of like. Sounds fucking stupid. But yeah, and that's essentially what it was. So I was like, well, I've got the snoozle bar and the Thoragra, they'll be the concurrent things all the way through it. I was like, the Amsterdam advert, that'll be the springboard into the next thing. And then it just popped to my mind. I was like, oh, I'll throw the fucking animation in when they're like, oh, hey, this will be fun. Let's roll another joint. And then I was like, boom, and then I'll throw the animation in, because then that will remind everybody that this is actually this is a Cannaman episode, but it's a movie, you know. And I was like, that will give them the Cannaman, like the feeling. It's because that's what was in my mind. It's kind of like what am I like with episodes of stuff, and I get a feeling as soon as the fucking trailer comes up, like with each episode. The Simpsons, Family Guy, it's different sensations, but it's both like eagerness, interest, what's coming. And I'm assuming for people that are like they follow the Cannaman stuff, that they'll have a similar sensation that will be unique to them when that tune comes up. And that's what I was thinking, well, that would be perfect. I'll throw that right at the beginning of the film, because then that will give them that feeling, and then they'll be in Cannaman world, and I'll be like just sitting chilling, and that's what was cool. And I was fortunate enough to have, both like contributing music essentially, which helped as well for the travel and stuff. But yeah, it's mental, man. It's mental to think that. It's just it's cool.
Yeah, with the obviously your uniqueness in terms of the style of animation does a lot of the groundwork. You're never not in that universe, as it were. You're only in the world that you've created, because you've obviously physically created it all. But yeah, you have those moments where you kind of check back into it. They're more often than not comedic, obviously because of the creativity and the humor in the writing, but also in the juxtaposition of the way that you allow the film to ebb and flow in an emotive tale. And I think one of the questions I suppose I wanted to ask you again, we're just continuing on the spoilers here. I don't think any of these spoilers actually detract from the movie either, guys, so worth checking out. And obviously for the same price, you get all the couch skits and everything else and behind the scenes, so worth doing. But when he goes into, or he has the experience of sort of, I don't know who you titled the character as in the credits. When he sort of meets that individual, and he has that.
I call him the alchemist.
The alchemist. When he meets the alchemist, and he kind of has that conversation of this explosion of symbology in various places of different sort of mystical traditions and sort of older rituals. And again, I think it only ever advances upon what you've already created in the universe that you have through the series and the couch skits. It's the consistency of the characters, as we were talking to about the potential thing of the commentators. That's what grounds it. As long as them two are in it, it almost doesn't matter where they are, because their relationship is what forms it. So anytime you do what you've done there to try and draw them back into it, it just comes across wonderfully humorous as a means by which to then go, okay, step into the next bit of absurd. And then the more familiar you are with the characters, the more absurd you could get with the expansion of it, because again, you're then curious of how these characters would react into that space. Do you know what I mean? It's like the excitement people used to have for superheroes before like the multiverse came along, and it took away all of the drama and the dread. I mean, and that's what leads me to my point of my third favorite part of it was the end. Was Donnie's reaction, the actual moment. It's scored really well, the pace is really well. That you're like, well, shit. You know what I mean? Like, is Cannaman dead? And there is an actual moment where it lingers. It almost lingers a moment too long in an uncomfortable way, like not because of as a critique of the scene, but more in terms of it feels uncomfortable. Because like, I know you need to tell me he's fucking fine now. You know what I mean? You want the relief, because you feel so, or I personally felt, especially with the second time, both times, but I guess most of the second time, because I wasn't lost to the awareness of other people, and I wasn't in the comfort of my own environment. But yeah, the empathy, the moment of, I need to comfort this giant rabbit. Why is nobody comforting the giant rabbit? Do you know what I mean? And then it leads to what I'm not going to speak of what kind of happens of next of it, but there is then a moment of resolution, and the story kind of moves forward. But yeah, the lingering moment of that is, I don't feel like I'm overhyping you here, but it's like tragically beautiful in a way. It's like you get it in the sense of like, I get what you're going for here. You got it on the fucking nail, but I need you to resolve this now, because I don't want to get upset to an animation. Do you know what I mean? It's not that, again, not to make a judgment of it, there is just something to it of just like, man, damn. And then the resolution comes, and I think then again the reveal, that dun 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 kind of moment, sets it off brilliantly, and it sets you off. I mean, and then the credits. I thought the credits was really creative. In terms of the hangover-esque kind of photos at the end, I thought was a really creative choice and way to kind of to move into the final credit board, whatever you call that. But yeah, I think structurally, as I've said, like, really worth the time. Something I will watch, I think, periodically from time to time. I look forward to then next one being out. I'm like, all right, we get to stack them. That's what I used to enjoy about old movies, that when they'd stack really well. But there's a fourth one. All right, that means I get to watch 1, 2, 3, then number 4.
That's a great thing to say. You have no idea. Like, that'll be in my mind for a long time, man. Because I never even thought about that. What I thought was just, I don't know. It's like there's like, you don't stay on the past. My thing, but like with the like, oh man, it's just like when you said that about the emotional moment. It's interesting because when I rewind back to when I was making that moment, I was really specific about that scene. Like about timing, like, because inevitably timing it gives you everything, obviously, but that scene in particular, I was really like, this is important, that this is like the central fucking thing in the film. That was really fun, and I think that's one of the things where it's like, so the next film, the Donnie movie, I want to have a lot of that, and I don't mean to devalue the moment. I just I need to have more moments of emotional connection to the film. And I think that might come as a sacrifice of the comedy. I think it'll be, because the whole base of the Donnie movie, and I'll not go into too depth because it's a different conversation essentially, and it won't be getting fully started until January, but I have storyboard ideas and it's a relatively solid foundation. I know what the first couple of scenes are. I know that I'm going to be including a lot of like famous fucking movie scenes, such as like one for the Goodfellas, when Joe Pesci's sitting with fucking with Ray Liotta, and he's like, how am I funny? What, am I a clown? I fucking amuse you? That shit. So I'm going to have that scene in it, and I think Donnie's going to be Joe Pesci, and then Cannaman will be the other thing, right? There's going to be a scene when Donnie sees a psychiatrist, so he sits in the psychiatrist's waiting room, the same waiting room that Tony Soprano sat in. And there's a statue where she's kind of like, she's got like hands behind her head, stuff like that statue, and then the professor, the Dr. Melfi comes out essentially, and she's like, Mr. Soprano, and I'm going to do that, but I have it as Donnie, because the basis of the fucking Donnie movie is that Cannaman, he's dead. That's what this is. Spoiler alert, what we're talking about a minute ago. But Cannaman's dead. And that's what the basis. And Donnie's struggling. That's what this is. It starts off and it's really dark. And in my mind, I'm like, this might be an 18. Because the thing is, that's what the basis of the film is that Cannaman and Donnie are like, as I said, countless times essentially, is that Cannaman and Donnie are representations of the psyche. Cannaman's the super ego and the ego, so he's like mechanical, what we're going to do, how we're going to fix this thing, and he's also long-term planning, wise, rational, all that kind of shit. Donnie is meant to embody the entirety of the id, where it's just all impulse-based, desire-based, pleasure-based, violence, all the socially undesirable characteristics of the psyche Donnie's supposed to incorporate. That's the basis of his character. And I think that's what's so fascinating about how many people tell me that he's their favourite. It's really interesting. I don't know what it says, but it certainly says something. So the basis of that, so I've been trying to think to myself, like, what would it look like if you had somebody that was completely encapsulated by the id characteristics, and that person went through a breakdown? Like, what would that look like? Like, if the worst social undesirable characteristics, the violence, pleasure-based bullshit, over intoxication, every form of undesirable personality characteristic, right? And they were going through a breakdown. Well, that's relatively entertaining in the context of an animation. And in real life, that's a dangerous circumstance and a tragedy for everybody involved. But in the context of this, you can do a lot with that, with Donnie doing that situation. So Cannaman's dead. He's no longer around. Donnie's struggling. It starts off essentially with him on the couch. Again, you speak your future, you get people visualizing it, magic starts. Donnie's sitting on the couch. He's got the fucking like a whiskey in one hand, he's got a joint in the other, and he's just sitting there, and the house is in a total state of disrepair. The couch is all ripped. It's the same purple couch, but it's faded as fuck. It's all ripped, it's destroyed. The wallpaper's all fucked. The house is fucked. It represents the state of decay that Donnie's gone through. And he's sitting there. This is the first time I've said this on camera, so this is going to be funny. I've said this to a few people in person, and the response is funny. That's why I'm laughing. But anyway, so this scene, that's what I mean. The film's going to be the dark as fuck. It's the id embodied through a depressive state. So Donnie's sitting there. He's got a whiskey in one hand. He's got a joint in the other. There's going to be an angle. It's all dark. It's going to just be flickers for the fucking screen, like behind them, or like obviously that kind of stuff. Like the whole room's not lit, but the television's lighting it, and it's a relatively poor signal, that kind of shit, right? And he's going to be sitting there, and there's going to be an angle where you see it, and it's all just from chest height, essentially, where it's like there's an angle on the sideboard where Donnie's got the fucking pills The pipes are open, they're kind of spilled. There's also a bottle of whiskey there. There's a joint in the ashtray, and there's a mobile phone, and that's going to have that angle, and it's going to be from that angle, like really close. Everybody probably picturing this really close to the screen, and it's we're going to see up to Donny's chest essentially, and he's going to have the draw of the joint. It's going to go that, and it's going to stay on an angle just above that angle essentially, where it's still looking at him like essentially chest height. He has a draw of the joint. He has a drink of the fucking stuff. People are watching it, and he's all stubble and shit, and he's like, he's like, people are watching it, like getting into his own, and everybody's putting their own personality into what circumstances led them to this state of bullshit. And if they're sitting there after about, I don't know, 45 seconds, a minute or so, there's going to be like a head pops up, and he's been getting a blowjob from a hooker the whole time. Right? And the thing is, but then and she's going to be like, oh, so did you enjoy that, baby, all that kind of shit, and it's still just deadpan, nothing, just total stone cold shit, and him just going, money's on the table. You know, and then it's just like, it's not even a humor, like we're laughing because it's ridiculous, but it's like, it's not going to be any, there's no laughter involved. He's going to be serious, right? And then she's going to like stand at the door, pretty much say something along the lines of like, you know, it's been a few years now, you need to get over it, or something like that alludes to somebody's absence or an event. And then he's going to be, and then she's going to say something like, at the very minimum, at least go to your appointment. And then she's going to turn around and fuck off. And then he's going to get a phone call. Don's going to get a phone call for the phone. It's going to light up. He's going to look at it from that same angle, from the pills and shit. And his phone's going to light up, and it's going to be somebody of significance in relation to the film. I'll not go too much away. But at the same time, he's then going to like answer the phone, or at the very minimum, like look at it, or there's going to be an interaction. And then the next scene is going to be essentially him, like the engine getting switched off, or the car pulling up at the front, and then a building on the outside, which is the psychiatrist's office, and him sitting in the fucking psychiatrist's office, which is like the same scene for Tony Soprano. He then goes in and he sits and talks to the psychiatrist, and there are 3 moments which happen, and I was thinking, that was, that's interesting because it's 3 for the adverts as well, but that happens when he goes in here. But I think I'll leave it at that, actually.
Yeah, man, I'm captivated. I'm captivated, honestly. I'm not going to ask the question I'm dying to, which is how he died, why he died, if he's going to be dead forever, except for all the others. We'll let those spoilers be for next year's podcast. Yeah. But yeah, what else have I got here question wise? I asked you about, so yeah, we discussed sequel, advert parodies. Yeah, one of the things that you repeated twice in an interaction between Cannaman and Donny was this disagreement of what is a coincidence. Could you, without, I suppose though we've already covered all the spoilers, but just explain that a bit, because they obviously have this disagreement in that Donny's like, everything's a fucking coincidence, or on the island's fucking coincidence, or is this, and Cannaman's obviously like, no, there are no such things. Everything is what is it?
Synchronicity. That's a great question, man. That's a shit hot question, man. That's so cool that you asked me that. That's a cool question, because that's kind of, again, central to the theme of the film. Implicitly, really, but again, obviously, Cannaman does obviously echo it a lot, so it kind of explicit in that sense. But yeah, man, like that's the basis. Obviously, that, like, I use synchronicity in the word because everybody knows Carl Jung's synchronistic terms, even though he's taken it from like Greeks and all these different other fucking examples of this stuff. But there seems to be a relative consensus through different ages, which have indicated that there's like it's like a unified field of connection. And every incident is connected in some form to something else. And it's just a butterfly effect. A lot of people will understand what this is anyway. And that's where, so Cannaman's whole basis of this thing is that he's kind of informed by the alchemist about this. He's kind of like, he's always, the basis of it is because Cannaman's never really spoke about it explicitly through any couch cut or any episode, because it's still, the series is still in its fucking infancy. So this has been the first example of it, and I just thought it'd be easier to just make it, this is how he thinks of life. So he has to have a trigger to that. So that's why he's kind of like, that's why when he meets the alchemist, and that's what's so interesting, because it's got the philosopher's journey on the outside. That's what the shop is, because that's the basis of what we're all engaged in some form. Is it's a philosopher's journey. If you're awake and paying attention, that you have, at the very minimum, right? If you're awake and paying attention, you have the philosopher's journey available to you. And if you're asleep and you're fucking watching TV and you're just like, nah, 9 to 5, pay taxes, good night, everybody, then it's not going to be accessible to you. And I think that's where the difference is, because people go, I don't have a fucking fate or a destiny. And then they tell you about their daily routine, and you're like, yeah, I know that fucking daily routine has no fate or destiny. You have to kind of cultivate one. You know, and that's what's so, and so what that tells me is that you're cultivating something that's internal. It's just been silenced slightly. It's just been kind of like fucking like neutralized in some form through comfort or through conditioning and all these different other fucking factors that we're all aware of. So we all have something unique inside of us, right? And the moment you become aware of that, the moment you start to be curious about what the unique thing is you have to offer, that's when you start your philosopher's journey. That moment where you start to question, I wonder what it is I'm here to give everybody. Like, I wonder what it is I'm here to offer everybody. I wonder what the thing is that I'm here to give.
What's that quote? Everyone has two lives, and the second one begins when you realize that you're here for a reason or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the quote is, but yeah.
It's true though, man. I mean, this information lives in the ether, and I've been fortunate enough to find some of this information as a consequence of just pushing myself through a craft, and the craft gives you this stuff. And that's the same for most people. Some people, like, it's some form of stress. That's what it seems to be. It seems to be in alignment with stress. It seems to be you don't learn as much when you're all comfortable all the time. But yeah, that's all it is. So the Cannaman thing, Cannaman is informed that everything's connected. Like, every instance leads to the next one, and it couldn't have happened any other way. And the free will element is, from Cannaman's perspective, more of a navigational thing. That's what it seems to be. That's what, like, it's more like you're navigating towards a general region in life, and that's where your free will is constrained, because people think that free will is the complete totality of any choice at any given moment, but that's just not the case, as we all know. I mean, fuck, if you ask somebody a question and they had a poor diet for the past fucking, if they hadn't slept or any of that kind of, they're immediately they're limited based on these biological factors. So it's ridiculous to think that free will is all encompassing. So by that means then that there's a very fine bandwidth of result that can happen in any chosen circumstance, and that fine bandwidth of result is most likely a direct representation on a micro scale of what the geometric fucking movement is on a macro scale, and that's just a small social fucking action, a small social direction in alignment with many other people next to you, and all of a sudden you've now got a social movement. It's bizarre. So that's what Cannaman believes. It's all synchronistic. We're all connected. It's all one unified Wi-Fi fucking hub. We were all interconnected to, figuratively speaking, obviously. And then Donnie believes it's all. He's meant to incorporate your cold fucking atheistic scientist guy that's just, it's just like there isn't any soul in life. It's kind of just like overgrown bacteria, that kind of shit.
Interesting. Yeah, I do like watching the interactions between them when that's kind of brought up, and I think it is quite succinct the way it's described, even though I can't repeat it verbatim right now, and I don't think nor should I think people should, again, watching links below.
It's interesting actually, because just what I was going to say was, as well, like, when you're in the alchemist thing and the philosopher's journey shop, I don't know if you noticed this, but again, these are huge spoilers, man, but fuck everybody if they're not aware by this point. It's like there's like the map on the side, and it's got the island drawn on it, and then there's a knife right in the middle of the island. And it's supposed to be, because the whole basis of the thing is, what I'm not said, and this is literally the last part of the movie, is that at the very end there's about 3 seconds where the alchemist's forehead lights up as a cannabis leaf. It's like, what does that mean? And that's what's interesting, is like, I've literally left that open and nobody's asked about it, because it's like, because what that was supposed to suggest, and maybe it was just pure artistic display on my part that maybe nobody's asked about it, but what it was supposed to indicate was, is Cannaman the alchemist? Is that what that's supposed to be? And because he knew, like, and that's why Cannaman's like, you look familiar, you seem familiar, that kind of shit. And it's supposed to be it's supposed to be, I'm playing on 2 different concepts really, whereas that the alchemist is meant to be the representation of immortality. That's what I'm kind of like back and forward with, because Cannaman fell off the cliff. There was a camera scene I fucking drew it. You know what I mean? There was a perspective. Fucking hell. There's a perspective where you see the entire cliff. You see Donnie at the top, and you see that he's nowhere to be seen. So there's nowhere to be seen. And yet, just before he arrives back, the alchemist pops up in the moon. And then there he is. Ta-da! And that's why it's supposed to be like, the whole movie is magic. That's what that's supposed to be, that magically he reappeared. And it's based on the concept of immortality, that is relatively timeless, and you're more like an expression of the time and what was going on at that moment through a particular craft or endeavor or something like that. And that's what it seems to be. Like, you're just like this little movement in a fucking, on a stream in the wind or something, and you're just kind of like a specific color in that fucking shade, It's
interesting. So I took it as being that, the alchemist was basically like all-knowing of his inner, the master in all of us, the voice that is quietest but is wisest within us. And I clocked that. I clocked even like there's a lot of things I still see. I was very fucked up by the number 23, the movie with Jim Carrey at one point, and it got me into 23. And then like the arrangement of books and various certain things were animated in 2s and 3s, and this arrangement of this. There was a clock like 111 at some point on a clock, and the snake eating its own tail, the fucking the triangles and the sacred geometric shapes and the yin and the yangs, and it was. I enjoyed all of them as just being signals of things to pay attention to. Wherever they were things that were important, and that Cannaman should then draw attention to. And then obviously the more attention you drew to things, the more of these things that were around. And then sort of, again, with not too many spoilers at the end, that moment, where you kind of make that reveal, and then when he's kind of revealed to be cool. Earlier in the movie, you showed the clip when he first got the 420 stuff on him, and he showed that he could grow a cannabis plant out of his hand.
Yeah.
And it was so in the moment, it was you flashing with the alchemist was basically Cannaman becoming in a way, touching that potential and bringing it into the present to use that power, manifest it, control it in a way that saved him, but was again where action can be perceived as magic. To Donnie not necessarily being conscious of that process in the same way that Cannaman was, that's an impossibility. Whereas the Cannaman in that moment, it was a rational response and action. And again, it spoke towards, again, follows the origin of both characters in a way. It to me felt like, again, what they kind of do with modern movies now, where a movie used to be encapsulated in and of itself, and now you make the first one to get the second one to get to the third, and together that's the story that would have originally been in a movie. And it just felt like that starting chapter of Cannaman kind of being like, but there is real power here. I have real potential. It's not just that, it's given us this and X, Y, Z. I now have this mission. We even the facing of the monster at the end. I'm not going to reveal who the monster is yet. That's at least the one secret we'll leave to this. But deliberately choosing Donnie, we've got to face this and going for it.
Yeah, that
is literally, again, is in that Joseph Campbell hero's journey kind of way. It's archetypal to that story in a Jungian kind of way, even. And I thought, there's a lot of different, obviously quite highly westernized, because we're both white dudes in the West and in the fucking north of the UK. The touching on certain philosophies that I thought mingled together really quite well, but without it coming across preachy or too esoteric, to like, you've got to know. You can know these symbols at a glance and have an idea of what it is that they symbolize.
It's great to hear this, man. It really is. Because like I say, it's not, I don't think I've had anybody that's described their interpretation of the movie in depth. Most people are kind of, I've not really actually had many conversations really about the movie whatsoever. And I think about it, I'm actually struggling to think of one. Because even when like the dude that came in before and he said, he was like, you have to make it longer, the next movie longer. That wasn't him telling me about the film. He was just in the past and he popped in and left. It was like, so anyway, it's cool that you noticed that kind of stuff, man. One of the things that's interesting is like, again, it's that whole interpersonal psychoanalysis thing that I do. There's what I've noticed the most is that the movie is like a huge representation of my entire thought process. Like that's why I was like, this is just like an outlet. This is like a fucking, like, this is like my, what it's like. Most men have views and opinions on the world and they're eager to describe what they are. Most men are like that. It's something fundamental inside of us that we're kind of like, nah, I know where I'm going and I'm walking this way and I know stuff and this is my story, that shit. We all have that inside of us. Some people might be like, no, I didn't have that, but just because nobody's next to you to fucking listen, you still got it there, bro. But yeah, and I think that's what the movie is. That's what the movie is. It's like, because I genuinely believe that's how I like what's going on now. It's off the next one. That's a side point. No, I think I've just had somebody. There's a great point. Somebody's just fucking subscribed to the website. Dickheads, get joining.
Nice. Yeah, links below.
Yeah, there we go. There's an ultimate fucking plug or what. But no, yeah, it's just, that's all it was, man. It was cool to be able to have an outlet to describe that kind of shit. And I just thought, I don't know. There's a part of me that's kind of like, so the Donnie movie has to be of equal magnitude. It has to be of equal uniqueness, because that's one of the, like, I have to, like, do you know what I mean? It has to be. It can't be lower. It has to be.
Will it be as? Because again, as I've just sort of articulated from my interpretation, I feel obviously from knowing you as well as I can for all we have the chats that we do and whatever else, not in person. I felt that it was quite a representation of, as you said, your thoughts, your philosophies, and it was quite distilled quite nicely into being, a concise representation. And as you were saying, that represents the ego, the ego and the superego, as it were, in the Freudian sense, and the Donnie is a stand-in for the id. If you're then going to do the id, is this also a personal exploration of yourself? Are you in some way gonna? I can't actually remember if I think we were discussing this before camera, or maybe on camera today. About when I was being honest about something, and you kind of actually, I didn't at first think I agree with that, but actually no, I do the same thing. Is it going to be that kind of thing where it's that insight? Because I feel that is another one of the best creations that I've seen, or the best creatives, are people who almost their work is inseparable from the creator. They can't help but intertwine it, and because of that, it has an authenticity that cannot be replicated. It is so genuine that it becomes all the more appealing to observe, or to digest in any form, because it just feels it's rich, it's nutritious, it's got more to it. You can
it's raw. That's what it is. No, 100%. So interesting, Simple. You're saying that, man. I would probably say that the Cannaman movie is a representation of my ego and my super ego, because the Donnie movie, that's one of the things that's quite interesting, is that just by indulging in the thought process, which is inevitably the initial stages of the creative process, indulging in the thought process, I feel that heaviness of the having to focus on his character and having to focus on, and then it reminded me of, and this is just a couple of days, maybe half a week or something like that, maybe 5 days, that I'd sat and I'd done this of like establishing some form of storyboard over this 5 days, and I got back to fucking the next thing I was doing anyway. So I was like, and that's what I felt, and it reminded me of the guy that created Breaking Bad, and he said this thing at the end of the series when they had like half a series left, and that was going to be over, and they asked him what you're going to miss the most, and he says, I don't know what I'm going to miss the most, but one of the things I'm looking forward to is not having to be in Walter White's head. And it was that, and I was like, that was an interesting thing to say, because that's what you're doing. You're constructing this character. You're there, man. And that's what I felt in the 5 days or so when I was really indulging in, like, that's what came up with the Goodfellas thing. And again, there's the three things he says to the psychiatrist is really like, fuck, that's really explicit. As I'm hesitant about even saying it, because I'm like, nah, probably that'd be fun to see. But even the essence of the three of them, and even the nature of the films that I've selected so far, Goodfellas and Sopranos, obviously two gangster type films. Also, I was going to put in some Pulp Fiction stuff, maybe, and just try and make it like I was contemplating putting in maybe like an Up in Smoke thing or something, but I was like, nah, fuck, it's too light, and that's what I mean. I need this to be, because it's interesting, because I wouldn't even say it as a self-exploration, but inevitably that's what happens. The initial process of it is more like it's more like an outward motion. It's more like, because inevitably when you're looking at self-exploration, that's then inward and you're analytical, introspective. But the initial process of creating the thing, I think you can actually get lost if you try to do it the other way. I think if you're not be so responsive, because that's essentially what it is at the beginning, you're just kind of throwing tons of shit. You're just throwing loads of ideas out, and you just let everything flow, and then you just kind of select the stuff, and then and that kind of shit. Whereas, and then later on, once you've made the whole thing and you're sitting there months later, you're kind of looking at it like, and then you get to like analyze it in a sense. So I wouldn't be surprised that will inevitably be the process. In the Donnie movie, I think it'll be kind of ridiculous for me to think that by the time this thing's finished, that it's not going to be a representation of my head. Like, that's just going to be, it's so, every scene is going to, like, it's going to be like, I've played with the idea of like, what if I could make people leave? like that, like, what if I could make it that folk were like, I can't watch this, and just because of the content, like, that is as powerful as making people euphoric for hours after the Cannaman movie. Like, if you can make, because we've all watched those movies, we've watched those films when it just stays with you in your chest for days, because it's like, oh, that was too fucking hard hitting. That's also equal measure.
There was crap. Sometimes my American law fucking fails me. There was a case in the States in the Supreme Court that set precedent around what is profanity in movies, and the ruling was basically that you can show repulsive, terrible, horrific things as long as it has redeeming artistic merit and quality. And I think you could, as long as it's to the spirit of that entirely. Obviously, if it's just
I
don't know. I don't know whether I was going to defend Human Centipede there or not in my brain. Like, everything should be allowed to exist in whatever else in whatever form, because even in that form, it's still a form of expression, ego art. So there is kind of a paradox in what I've just said in terms of the precedent that was set by that. But I think, what is the id? The id is manifest, and think of the animated characters that you know of. And you said it before, it was interesting why people come up and say Donnie's your favorite character. Who's people's favorite character of Futurama? Bender.
My son,
who's people's favorite character in South Park?
Yeah, Cartman.
Do you know what I mean? Who's the favorite in the fucking Simpsons? It's going to be Homer or Bart, or exactly. It's somebody that can unfiltered just be themselves unapologetically and be accepted by the society around them. I think it's that acceptance mechanism that our id wants more than anything, because ultimately we act out often out of it's like Gabriel Marty spoke of, kind of the negative things that happen, but also the positive things that don't happen. Do you know what I mean? And these form kind of our reaction to the stimuli of the world in our lives. And we see characters like this and go, that is freedom. But then what you don't see is the other side of these characters. Often the shows themselves do quite a good job of humanizing them and bringing their emotive side to it to balance it out, that they will express themselves as XYZ, but they will face consequence to this, and that will then force them into a position of an option of growth. Obviously that doesn't really work on a show where you reset every episode, but there's still obviously always the depiction of it in a way that there are consequences to it. And I think that we recognize, as we were saying before, that if you give the people all of the fucking things, they'll still want something else. If you truly liberate their id, they're either going to form to a point of, this will get us massively fucking censored, but fucking how do you switch up his name? I can't remember what people were doing to switch up his name. The guy whose aeroplane people flew onto his island to do various things. You either move to that level of fucking depravity, or you find your own level of just going.
See, that's what's interesting, right?
Shit,
No, that's an interesting point, right? Because inevitably that's the case, and the way I've kind of rationalized it down to in my mind is that you don't sacrifice the artistic taste of the product for displaying extremeness for the sake of extremeness. And I think that's what it is. There are inevitably there's a spectrum of everything, and I think, just personally, do you know what I kind of categorize it to, right? It's more along the lines of, and it could just be personal, because when I think about what I'm going to include in the film, I'm like, someone want to fucking it's like super violent shit, I don't know. And just, it's Donnie, it's going to have to be, that's just, and he's going to be going, so there's a story, all that kind of shit. But yeah, so I put it down to the same category as when you sit and watch those real, and I might just become a fucking loser, but like when you watch the real murder mysteries, like these are real people, we've died and blah blah blah, and real families have been destroyed. It's fucking gut wrenching. Nobody's want to sit through that shit. I don't want to watch that. You know what I mean? I don't want, and inevitably it's funny because loads of people find it entertaining. It's entertainment in the broader sense of the word, but I don't find it pleasurable by watching it. Whereas some folk, like, they'll sit and read the book, was it A Child Called It, and all that kind of shit. They'll sit and read that shit. They'll open up a part of their life to include this. That's, for me, it's too much, man. Life's fucking painful enough. I'm not going to indulge more. And that's how I categorize this same stuff, is that there's certain things that I'm just not what I fucking hear about, man. It makes life too dark, man. Whereas you can have darkness and still be it's almost in the psychological sense as play. Like the actual real literal sense of play. It's like the most extreme form of that, and that's like, and I mean that in a psychoanalytical term, the word play, and that's what it's like. And I think it's only regarded in that category of play with a capital P if it's maintained in a specific boundary. The moment it goes in, and I think that's where the interpersonal subjectivity comes in, because like some folk, like at one moment, Donnie's going to be pure rattling a guy's head with a car door. That's like, some folk will be like, bro, this is, and it'll be like, you'll see the blood and all that kind of shit. The folk will be like, that's too much. Whereas other folk will be like, no, that's contained in the boundary. And in my mind, that's contained inside the boundary. And you go back when you've got like reaching onto like fucking what you're describing there and all that kind of shit. Nah, man, there's no fun in that. There's no fun in that. Family Guy like to fuck with that shit. You know what I mean? That's because they do it artistically, and it does come across as funny. Like Louis C.K. talks about that kind of stuff, the comedian. You know, and they do it really well. Personally, it's nah, man. That's too heavy shit, man.
Yeah, man, that's like I said, it's gonna be really interesting to see kind of how it manifests and kind of works out. I take it, as Cannaman alludes to in the movie, this won't be the last time we'll see Agent Crawford. There will be a continuation within the sort of cinematic universe of that story.
Yeah, so he's an interesting character because I'm in two minds what to do with him, and I'm trying my best not to be generic with any of this stuff. It's kind of fun, quite honestly, Simple, when I think about the opportunities I have here. Whereas I'm like laying out the foundations of an animation series. And it's cool as fuck. And it's taken years to even get the opportunity to lay out the thing. That's why it's taken tens of thousands of hours of creating comics to be able to do this, and it was 100% necessary. Like I couldn't have been doing this shit without those 10,000 hours of comics, essentially. And now I'm just at the beginning of this thing. And what's interesting is that's what so Agent Crawford, he will be in the second movie, right? He'll be in the Donnie film, 100%. And I'm just in two minds what to do with his character, because like he is the representation of the corporate robot. He's the authority, he's the policeman, he's the face of the authority. But as I was seeing in the film, the Cannaman movie, the operator of the authority is behind him. He was the guy on the laptop that he's sitting, he's like, we've got enough information, get rid of him. That's the main guy. He's the fucking boss. You only seen him for seconds. And that's where in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what to include, because we've also got like I wouldn't even say it's significant, actually, a storyline of Cannaman being hyper advanced as a consequence of a boost endocannabinoid system. So there's something there you could use. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's a part of me that thinks, well, there's also a timeline for each animation series, right? And the way I see this is I'm doing this when I'm in my 70s, right? So what can I do to maximize? That's what this is, man. This is like, it's tatted inside, man. That's what this is. So I'm doing this in my 70s, right? So what can I do to make sure that fucking time frame is healthy throughout? Inevitably, there's going to be like falls, and I'm like, this is a shit episode, or that's what the comics are. I look over them. You can't be fucking on point all the time, but as long as your statistics are up, then statistically you'll be fucking in the game. So as long as you're doing 60% of good shit, that's fine. Essentially, but let's make it fucking 98, but essentially, so what I've seen that is like, so between now and in my fucking 70s, and the fucking I fall down on the fucking pad, right? What can I do to make that timeline go? And what it feels like to me is that I think starting off with and it might just be the mind frame that I'm in as my time in life, fucking 33, how I'm looking at life, whatever. But it feels to me that, including the generic superhero formula of him being super fucking, I'm advanced, all that kind of shit, I should leave that for a few years, essentially, maybe 2. And at the beginning, I'll just make him relatively gritty and raw towards reality and make Cannaman essentially human. That's what he is. Donnie's a 6-foot fucking talking rabbit. That's just what. So there's a small little implication, an implied basis that there's something supernatural going on, but not really anything. And it's just all based in like, what would a guy with a fucking cape deal with shit like that? And then that means I can kind of go down the route of like dealing with fucking dealers and local shit. You know what I mean? And like, and like that little, the normal commonalities between people who've experienced cannabis from the fucking all the way back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way through, because that's what's more entertaining. There's not much entertainment when you're just going into a dispensary and buying a legal bit of smoke. That's not the case. But when it's actually in places, obviously like us as well now, but way back in I'd say like 90s and 2000, that kind of thing, when it was even unavailable and shit like that, there were certain characteristics that were present by just trying to source it. You know what I mean? Like the community's involved of everybody chipping in 20 pence to get a ridiculous size bit of smoke. You know what I mean? All these different little like endearing things that can be used in the animation to kind of make it more cannabis centric. And then I could maybe, and move it after that to then the superhero stuff, because then it'll, like, the gritty shit will only last so long, but it will eventually take its own course. But that's how I'm trying to see it. I'm trying to say, how can I maximize longevity over the next fucking like 40 years of doing this kind of thing, and that's why that thought thing I said earlier of what would it be like if you had every opportunity available to you, because inevitably that's what's happening. That's what's going to be available. There's going to be a circumstance that's going to emerge in that timeline. Like anything, if you're going to try something for a year, there's like a fucking 1% chance you're going to be successful. If you're going to try it for 40 years, the chances of you being successful is way statistically higher, man. Like way more, just by increasing your time span of activity. So inevitably, that's going to eventually reach a point where you have endless sources, endless resources to make this stuff. And what would that look like? And bizarrely, man, if I'm being honest, I keep seeing this 3D fucking head, man. I keep seeing this 3D Cannaman where it's like all the way around. I keep seeing that popping in my head. I don't know if it's a VR thing or something, but recently when I've done that thing of what's it going to look like in scene 5, like series 5, 6, 7 onwards, or what, 20 year or whatever, there's that. It's like a 3D thing. And I just, that's all I can see at the moment. Just a fucking, I don't even want that. That's in shit, but that's what keeps popping up. You know, just this 3D fucking head. Like you see where McDonald's fucking sign spinning around or something.
Yeah.
No, that's what I picture. Just Cannaman's fucking head.
This is again to have that hope and that ambition and to always level up, to, you know, step onto that plateau and to then go, I like this. I'm taking the view a minute, and then go, you know what, I'm not going to get content here. To have that and almost to have it in spite of yourself, I think is a wonderful thing. I think that's what I often speak of when I speak of that juxtaposition of being like burdened and blessed. Because it's almost in spite of yourself that you are driven to do this thing. Oh, you could do this. And you're like, fucking brain, why'd you think of that? You know I'm going to try and do it now.
Yeah.
Did you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's epic, and it's good to know that'll continue. I mean, in my head, it's like 80s, 90s James Bond. Oh no, it was more 90s James Bond, where it became like Bond and whichever character became the secondary standing character, and then they took on the two bad characters, and it was like Bond had killed the main guy and the second guy would kill the second guy. Yeah. And it was kind of that take on it. And then it got a bit like Kingpin-y because of the way he's kind of sat, or like Goldfinger when he's got the cat. And I just love the idea of as he done it, the stand-in, that Big Pharma isn't the big enemy per se, it's the manifestation of it in this story, and it alludes to another subsect of, let's call it loosely, dark magic, as it were. And again, that's that yin and yang, and I think the Donny adding to that story gives the dark and the light of the yin of Cannaman, and then I think it balances it quite nice.
I appreciate that, man. The thing is, it's going to be good with the Donny thing as well, because his arc on the film is going to be that transformative thing where he's going to be, I've maybe spoke too much about the Donny film, but it's going to be good. Really looking forward to doing that. And the next thing to really look out for, though, is the episode. Obviously, apart from the movie being uploaded today, but the next episode, which will be ready in about 2 weeks, and that's, for fashion's sake, I think I spoke about that before. That'll be good, and it's cool because I'm looking forward to, like, I see the advancements, but I do the series trailers, and now working on this episode, I see the work and progressing, which is always encouraging. Which is it's kind of cool.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's one of the things I always find wonderful about our conversations, recorded or not, is being inspired by the continuous, I would say, what appears to me, at least through our fucking conversations and through the amount of work that you produce, your unwavering commitment to your vision, and to constantly being curious but committed. Do you know what I mean? As you were saying, to have these ideas and to want to explore them, and to have the fortitude and the confidence to be able to do that live in a real space, I think is something that is commendable and respectable, man. So thank you as always for the inspiration.
Well, thanks, man. I'm glad you're doing something right if you're inspiring people. Like, that's what I mean. That this is, when I think about that, because it's so funny. Like when I said that, once the movie was finished, the next day I'm right straight back to drawing and stuff. It's like, even though, right, like I've got 2 episodes of the season left, season 2, and then I'll be completely finished that. But once I've done this episode, I'm going to start working on a Donny movie. But I'll be honest, even though this episode's not finished, this is what, it sounds ridiculous, but this is genuinely this is what's like in my mind. Even though this episode's not finished, I've got 2.5 weeks of work left, and I've not even started the Donny movie. The only thing that's really passed through my mind on a constant basis is what season 3 is going to look like. Well, that's the only thing that in my mind, I'm like, how is it going to be? And there's a format that I'm trying to fucking apply over it's like Kabbalion rules and shit. I'm not too sure I'm playing with that. But that's what keeps popping in my mind. It's like season 3, and I've not even finished this episode. Still got 2 episodes left of series 2, and the Donny movie's not even been made yet. And it's just like, it's not even, it was just when you're saying that, it's kind of like a, ambition, but it's, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's addiction or fucking what, but it certainly feels sometimes like I don't really have a choice. This is happening. This is what's going on.
Yeah, man. No, I think it's inspiring to see. It is, and it's great that you're now centralizing it all behind quite a simplistic sort of paywall of subscription, which again, plug links below, folks. I will probably in the next 2 days I should be signing up myself because I didn't realize you've moved everything over. So
I appreciate
I will support you because I understand what it is to be supported in the space, and I appreciate what you do. I like what you do, and like I said, I'm curious, and the fact that the way you've spoken it there gets me more excited for what it is that you're going to produce, because you're thinking about the long term. It's becoming and adapting and growing in quite a quantum way, and that, all right, crap, if I'm already thinking of this, I can change this now, and I've got the opportunity this on that could then mean this, and it's all becoming in a live form. Again, it's because it's all expressive of you as an individual and as and of your journey. It's great to see it in a live form. It's kind of like reality TV or a voyeuristic kind of thing in a way as well. Do you know what I mean? To be able to watch that, and I think that's where we kind of fall as a species, is we like that in a certain way, but then we get weaponized towards exceptionally negative content. We end up with that kind of confirmation bias that kind of fucks us up. But yeah, I think it's great work, and I can't plug it enough, folks.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been brilliant, man.
Yeah, it has. I've really enjoyed this. I hope it doesn't take another 12 months, but if it does, it's a minimum. We'll get you back here in 2024, which, God, when you say it like that, is, it's the future now, but it's not. It's today. You know what I mean? Last question then. Same cliche when you get all the fucking time, although you probably just answered 90% of it. Other than Cannaman, what does the future hold for you for the next 12 months or so?
That's actually a brilliant question, man, because I've not mentioned this one bit in the interview. I'm working on a graphic novel called Take Care. And that will be the next thing finished once the next episode's done. And that's going to be, so I'm about page 35. There's about 69, 63 pages in it or something like that. And yeah, that's the very first graphic novel I've ever done. I started it in 2020. I was working in a care home, just doing kitchen dishes and shit like that. And I just noticed that there's like the level of social interaction, which is present in a care home, is kind of fascinating, right? Because you're kind of looking at it through different lenses. You've got people from different ages that are all different carers and stuff like that. You've got the residents, which have had different life experiences altogether. Inevitably, the life experiences of the residents are going to change as decades go on, all that kind of shit. So you've got a moving, like a kind of movability there. And that's what I thought. And I thought there's a lot of social politics between the carers, and that's why. So I thought, I've a completely fictitious story. And the only thing that's the same is the building. So I drew the building the exact same as when I worked there. So it's the same building, but I've called it Eden Villa. I'll not say what the actual name of it, the actual real building is. So in the book it's called Eden Villa, which is funnily enough the name of my doctor's nearby. So I was like, fuck it. But Eden Villa, I thought that's quite a good name for that. And that's what it's all about. It's a dark comedy. And the reason why I call it Take Care is because it's based on a care home, and it's essentially just about how the staff fall out, and one of the residents passes, and it causes stigma, and the care home has had a lot of damage and stuff like that, and the care commissions coming in soon, like in the next day. The whole story's over the course of like a day or something like that, maybe two, but I think I've done it over, I think it's like 2 days or something like that, maybe. And it's just, that's all it is essentially. That'll be ready. I was really hoping to have it ready for Christmas, but I don't think that's going to be likely. So I'm thinking at the very minimum, the beginning of January, at the very minimum. But I would like it done before that, quite honestly. I know it sounds silly when I was talking about earlier how there's no time limit, you just fucking focus on it, but stuff's going to get done. And it's like fucking, that'll be fun to have that done, because I've not done a graphic novel before. I've put some pages on my Instagram, and it's just all going to be black and white. There's going to be like a black border around the entire thing. The rest of it's going to be monochrome, apart from the characters that are speaking, and they're going to be coloured. But the rest of the scenery and all that's all monochrome. And it's going to highlight on a few like important issues. One of them about the pills that are given through the care homes. Another one when it touches on like staff, when there's a staff member on the floor or whatever that's been promoted to management, and how that interacts with the people that they were previously colleagues with, essentially. And then there's other one of because there's residents in these care homes that have had a lot of money, or they've had houses and shit like that, and their family's taking it, and it's like just to put them in there just because of that. So I'm trying to touch on these things to make it of substance. But my plan is to not, sorry to go on, man. My plan is to fucking not put it on Amazon. Is to kind of put it on, to try and buy 100 copies locally for like a local publisher or something, and then just have them here. I would then sign them and then sell them through the website, because I would have bought them instead of having it through Amazon. Because I mean, again, it's just trying to make it as independent as possible and try to steer away, because the mechanics are there to be the same level as these fucking people that are taking our 20% every time they're fucking printing their shit. You know what I mean? We can do that. You know, you just have to put in enough effort, time, and vision, and then you'll be able to manage it. So that's the plan. Get that printed off, have it finished for the end of December. And then after that, then it'll be full steam ahead with the Donny movie, and maybe throwing a couch skit or whatever is that's going on, because that'll be like 10, 11 months or whatever until Christmas next year. Christmas next year will be when the Donny movie's getting released.
Excellent, man. A lot of fucking work, but it sounds like you are motivated. You are more than capable. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing how things come together. And yeah, I think it's great that again you're expanding out into other mediums and just always, you know, like playing. I think, as you described before, in the psychological sense, you're being playful with life, and I think that is hopefully one of the things my audience takes away, because it's something, as I say, I'd take away from our conversations every time.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, brother. I'll let you go. I'll do some housekeeping, and yeah, we will touch base soon.
Nice one, man. That sounds good.
Yeah, man. It's been a pleasure as always, brother. I'll include links to various things below, website where people can subscribe, your Instagram, and podcast links. But yeah, again, thank you very much for taking the time, brother. It has been a pleasure.
Really enjoyed it, Simpa. Thanks, man.
No worries. All right. Take it easy, brother. Peace and love. Well, there you go, folks. Despite a very rocky start there, that was a very good fucking recording. I enjoyed the conversation as always. Great to have Conor on and to catch up with what he's been up to. Insatiable appetite for his work, that man. He just continues to produce thing after thing after thing. It's yeah, impressive to see. And as I said toward the end there, it's inspiring, I find, for me personally. I hope that you guys took something from that as well. Yeah, if nothing else, that you want to go see the Cannaman movie. Shameless fucking spoilers promotion. We do apologize about quite a lot of the spoilers. I do still think the overall movie is definitely worth your time. Definitely worth the £10 subscription. Yeah, this is not a paid advertisement. This is just my love and respect for Conor. So I'm promoting the movie because I think he does good work. And his passion always shows through. So yeah, support local people. Support. This is local stuff for local people. Support like community creators, you know, and people within the culture. I think it's important to produce our own content, produce our own art, produce our own literature, produce our own representation of our voices, of our living experience. Within cannabis culture, drug culture, alternative counterculture in general. So yeah, all power to him. Yeah, I think we did quite well there. We touched on the majority of things that I wanted to discuss there. I actually got a couple of article ideas out of him for free, so appreciate that as well. Conor, yeah, check out the website below, the Cannaman website below. Check out the CannamanTV podcast as well. Some really good guests that he's had on in the past, and some great guests he will no doubt have on in the future. Yeah, £10 subscription on the website for all of his history of content. And everything that you will get moving forward as well. He'll produce moving forward as well. You will get, which I think is, yeah, a bargain. Absolute fucking bargain. Check it out on the links below. All right, some exciting news, folks. The Simpa Life website is back, or at least one of the domains. The .com is now the dominant domain and set up. I'm still struggling to get the .co.uk back right now, but we're going to keep fucking fighting and figuring that one out with the various organizations who are involved having lost it on the registrar, which doesn't make any fucking sense to me, but whatever. Yeah, so check out the website. I've uploaded previous Weird World articles that have been missing from this year. I'm working on some other content at the minute, but as Conor continues to persistently remind me, I need to be focusing on this podcast and on writing a book, which is what I am outlining at the minute. So I don't think I'm quite as proficient or as efficient at producing literature as Conor is with his written work. So yeah, it might take me a minute, but I'm working on something. So yeah, check out the website for all previous, not all previous content, but a good selection of my previous content. Check us out on all social media platforms at The Simpa Life. If you really enjoyed this podcast, please do give us a like, share, a subscribe, a rating, whatever it is on your platform. I would greatly appreciate any interactions, as it helps me get around the wee shadow bands that I have for the terminology and the language that I use. Which, yeah, allows me to bring more content to you fine folks. If you really, really enjoyed this, do check us out on patreon.com/The Simpa Life, where you can help contribute for less than a cup of coffee a month to keeping the lights on this little project and ensuring that we keep bringing you these wonderful guests week after week. We'll be back next week with somebody, I don't know, be awesome. You'll love it. I'll love it. It'd be great. All right. Be wonderful to each other. Peace and love, folks. See you next week. So, folks, yeah, today's guest is our third time. Is it rather? See, fucked it up already. Jesus Christ.
That's good.
Will be in the outtake. We'll stick this in the outtake at the end.
Fucking
hell, man! This is what happens when we end up chatting for like an hour before I start recording.